In this video, I'll be walking you through the entire Resident Evil timeline in chronological order, covering every major event from the franchise's decades-long narrative. We're going to explore roughly 20 canonical entries spanning from the 1960s origins of the Progenitor virus all the way to the year 2037, including the mainline numbered games, their remakes, essential prequels like Resident Evil 0, direct story expansions such as Code, Veronica, and the Revelations titles, and key DLC episodes that continue the main storyline. This timeline focuses on the main canonical video game entries and their direct prequels and sequels, excluding spin-offs, non-canonical games, and most animated and live-action films unless directly tied to game lore, which means we won't be diving into things like the Outbreak series, certain mobile games, or the Paul W.S. Anderson film universe, as those exist in separate continuities or don't significantly impact the core narrative. As always, throughout the video, there will be a timeline animation at the bottom of the screen, so you can easily follow along and understand exactly when each event takes place. Now, here's something that might surprise you if you've only played the more recent games. The origins of the T-Virus and the Umbrella Corporation's dark experiments stretch back decades before the infamous Raccoon City incident, revealing a much longer history of bioorganic weapon development than many realize. But before we get to any of that, we need to explain the setting first, starting with the discovery that would change the world forever and set humanity on a path toward biological horror. Our story begins not with the outbreak you might expect, but decades earlier in the humid jungles of West Africa during the 1960s. It's here, among the dense vegetation and exotic flora of the continent, that a young virologist named Dr. James Marcus makes a discovery that will reshape the course of human history and ultimately lead to countless horrors. While conducting field research into indigenous plant species, Marcus identifies a unique retrovirus contained within a rare flower native to the region. This pathogen, which he names the Progenitor virus, possesses extraordinary mutagenic properties unlike anything documented in scientific literature. The virus demonstrates an unprecedented ability to rewrite the genetic code of living organisms at a fundamental level, causing rapid and dramatic mutations in cellular structure. Marcus recognizes immediately that his discovery holds potential far beyond conventional medicine. The Progenitor virus doesn't simply infect cells, it transforms them, accelerating evolutionary processes that would normally take millennia and compressing them into days or even hours. For a researcher with vision, or perhaps ambition that outstrips ethical consideration, the implications are staggering. Marcus begins cultivating samples of the virus, carefully extracting it from the West African flowers and preparing it for controlled study. However, the remote location and primitive facilities available in the field prove inadequate for the kind of intensive research the Progenitor demands. Marcus returns to civilization with his samples and establishes a research facility at what becomes known as the Executive Training School, a remote compound that will serve dual purposes. On the surface, it functions as an educational institution for training Umbrella's future management personnel. Beneath that mundane exterior, it houses sophisticated laboratories where Marcus can pursue his viral research away from prying eyes and regulatory oversight. For his test subjects, Marcus selects an unusual candidate: leeches. These segmented annelids prove remarkably receptive to progenitor infection, and their relatively simple biology makes them ideal for observing the virus's mutagenic effects in real time. Marcus develops a particular fascination with these creatures, spending countless hours documenting how the virus alters their behavior, physiology, and even their apparent intelligence. The leeches become more than mere test subjects to him. They represent the first successful demonstration that the progenitor can create something new, something that transcends natural evolutionary boundaries. But Marcus doesn't work in isolation. His discovery attracts the attention of two other brilliant minds who share his fascination with the progenitor's potential. Oswell E. Spencer, an aristocratic businessman with deep pockets and deeper ambitions, sees in the virus an opportunity to reshape the balance of global power. Edward Ashford, a respected scientist from a distinguished family, approaches the progenitor from a more idealistic perspective, believing it might hold keys to curing genetic diseases and enhancing human cognitive function. In 1960, these three men, each driven by different visions for the progenitor virus, join forces and establish the Umbrella Corporation. The name itself is carefully chosen, suggesting protection and security, a comforting symbol that will serve as the perfect cover for their true intentions. Umbrella presents itself to the world as a pharmaceutical company, and indeed, it does produce legitimate medicines and health products. The corporation quickly establishes a reputation for innovation and quality, with its distinctive red and white logo becoming synonymous with cutting-edge medical research. Umbrella's public face is one of benevolence, a company dedicated to improving human health and well-being. But this is merely a facade, a carefully constructed front that conceals the organization's actual purpose. Behind closed doors and beneath the floors of their legitimate facilities, Umbrella's true work proceeds in absolute secrecy. The three founders share a common goal that supersedes any public health mission: the development of bioorganic weapons, or BOWs as they become known in internal documentation. These are living weapons, organisms enhanced or created through viral manipulation to serve military purposes. The potential applications are limitless. Imagine soldiers who feel no pain, who possess superhuman strength and durability, who follow orders without question or moral hesitation. Imagine weapons that can think, adapt, and hunt their targets with predatory efficiency. This is the dark promise of the Progenitor virus, and it's a promise that all three founders find irresistible. even if their individual motivations differ substantially. Spencer, ever the strategist, understands that such research requires not just funding and talent, but also the proper infrastructure. He commissions an architect named George Trevor to design and construct a facility that can house their most sensitive research while maintaining absolute secrecy. Trevor is a master of his craft, known for his innovative designs and his ability to incorporate complex mechanical systems into his buildings. Spencer tasks him with creating a mansion in the Arklay Mountains, a remote region outside Raccoon City, where isolation and natural barriers will provide security. But this is no ordinary mansion. Trevor's commission includes specifications for hidden passages, elaborate locking mechanisms, and architectural puzzles that will restrict access to unauthorized personnel. The mansion itself is a work of art, a sprawling estate that speaks to Spencer's wealth and refined tastes, but it's what lies beneath that truly matters. The Arklay laboratory, constructed in the excavated chambers below Spencer's mansion, represents a triumph of clandestine engineering. Trevor designs a vast underground complex that rivals any legitimate research institution in terms of equipment and capability. The laboratory features advanced containment systems for handling dangerous biological materials, specialized testing chambers for observing infected subjects, and redundant security measures to prevent both intrusion and escape. The facility is divided into multiple sections, each dedicated to different aspects of booby research: climate-controlled storage houses, the precious progenitor samples, and their derivatives. Vivarium sections provide space for maintaining test subjects ranging from insects to large mammals. Surgical theaters allow for invasive procedures and biological modification. And throughout the complex, Trevor incorporates his signature hidden passages and puzzle locks, creating a labyrinthine environment where only those who understand the mansion's secrets can navigate freely. The architect pours years of his life into this project, unaware that his intimate knowledge of the facility's layout will eventually mark him as a security liability in Spencer's calculating mind. As Umbrella grows and its research progresses, the relationship between the three founders begins to evolve in troubling ways. Spencer, who controls the corporation's finances and business operations, starts to consolidate his power within the organization. He views Marcus and Ashford not as equal partners, but as potential rivals who might challenge his authority or interfere with his vision for Umbrella's future. Spencer's ambitions extend far beyond the creation of biological weapons. He sees the Progenitor as a tool for achieving something grander, a means of elevating humanity, or perhaps more accurately, elevating himself to a position of godlike power and influence. This growing megalomania makes him increasingly paranoid about sharing control with anyone, even the men who helped him build Umbrella from nothing. Meanwhile, Marcus continues his research with single-minded dedication, remaining focused on the Progenitor's mutagenic properties and their applications for biological warfare. His work with leeches expands and deepens. He develops new strains of the virus, each designed to produce specific effects in infected organisms. Marcus documents how different progenitor variants can enhance strength, accelerate healing, or alter cognitive function. He becomes particularly interested in the virus's potential for creating controllable bows, organisms that can be directed to attack specific targets while ignoring others. His research notes from this period reveal a man utterly consumed by his work, someone who has lost sight of any ethical boundaries in pursuit of scientific achievement. The leeches, his first and favorite test subjects, continue to play a central role in his experiments. Marcus treats them with an affection that borders on paternal, speaking to them during his work and expressing pride in their development as they grow larger, stronger, and more responsive to his conditioning. Edward Ashford takes a markedly different approach to the progenitor research. While his partners focus on the virus's destructive potential, Ashford remains committed to exploring its beneficial applications. He dedicates his efforts to understanding how the progenitor might enhance human intelligence and cognitive function without the violent mutations that characterize most infections. Ashford genuinely believes that the virus could be refined into a tool for improving humanity, curing neurological diseases, and perhaps even elevating human consciousness to new heights. His research focuses on isolating and enhancing the progenitor's effects on brain tissue and neural pathways. Where Marcus sees weapons and Spencer sees power, Ashford sees hope for a better future, though his idealism increasingly puts him at odds with his partner's more ruthless pragmatism. To the outside world, Umbrella continues its steady rise as a pharmaceutical giant, opening new facilities, releasing new products, and expanding its influence across the globe. But behind this legitimate business operation, the three founders pursue their individual agendas, each interpreting the progenitor's potential through the lens of their own obsessions. The stage is set for decades of secret research, ethical violations, and ultimately, the catastrophic events that will emerge from this Pandora's box they've opened in the Arklay Mountains. By 1978, nearly a decade after Umbrella's founding, Oswald Spencer's vision of creating the perfect biological weapon was finally within reach. The breakthrough came not from Spencer himself, but from one of his three original partners, Dr. James Marcus, who had been appointed as the first director of Umbrella's newly established executive training school in the Arklay Mountains, had spent years experimenting with the progenitor virus. His goal was to enhance its properties, to make it more stable and more reliably infectious. Marcus chose an unusual subject for his experiments: leeches. These creatures possessed remarkable regenerative abilities and a primitive but efficient nervous system. When Marcus successfully combined progenitor with leech DNA, he created something entirely new. He called it the tyrant virus, or T-virus for short. This would become the most infamous pathogen in Umbrella's arsenal, and eventually in human history. The T-virus represented a quantum leap beyond the original Progenitor strain. Where Progenitor had been unpredictable and often lethal without producing useful results, the T-virus showed far more consistent effects. It could reliably infect host organisms and trigger rapid mutation. More importantly for Umbrella's purposes, it demonstrated the ability to reanimate dead tissue, effectively creating what could only be described as the walking dead. Marcus documented these properties meticulously, observing how the virus attacked the brain's frontal lobe, destroying higher cognitive functions while leaving the brainstem intact. The result was a creature driven purely by base instincts, primarily an insatiable hunger. These reanimated corpses, which would later be designated as zombies in Umbrella's internal documentation, were slow and clumsy, but they were also remarkably resilient and required significant trauma to neutralize permanently. Marcus's position as director of the executive training school gave him access to a steady supply of test subjects. The facility, ostensibly created to train Umbrella's future executives and researchers, served a darker purpose. Marcus began conducting unauthorized human experiments, using both students and staff members who disappeared from the school without explanation. The official records would list them as dropouts or transfers, but in reality, they became guinea pigs for Marcus's increasingly ambitious viral research. He was particularly interested in how the T-virus affected different age groups, body types, and genetic backgrounds. His research notes from this period, later recovered by investigators, reveal a man completely divorced from ethical considerations, viewing his subjects purely as data points in his quest for scientific advancement. The mutations caused by the T-virus went far beyond simple reanimation. Marcus discovered that living subjects exposed to the virus could undergo dramatic physical transformations. Their bodies would twist and grow, often incorporating characteristics from other organisms if the viral strain had been modified appropriately. He created several prototype bioorganic weapons, or BOWs, a term that would become standard across Umbrella's research divisions. These living weapons range from enhanced attack dogs to larger, more dangerous creatures. Each iteration taught Marcus more about controlling and directing the virus's mutagenic properties. His ultimate goal was to create the perfect BOW, a humanoid weapon that combined human intelligence with superhuman strength and resilience. He called this theoretical creation a tyrant, naming it after the virus itself. However, Marcus's success bred suspicion. Oswald Spencer had never truly trusted his former partner, and Marcus's growing independence alarmed him. The doctor had become increasingly secretive about his research, often refusing to share his findings with Umbrella's central administration. Spencer recognized that Marcus's knowledge of the T-virus made him both invaluable and dangerous. If Marcus chose to leave Umbrella or sell his research to a rival organization, it could destroy everything Spencer had built. Spencer needed to ensure complete control over the T-virus, which meant he needed to control or eliminate Marcus. He chose two brilliant young researchers for this delicate task, William Birkin and Albert Wesker. Birkin and Wesker had both been recruited by Umbrella in the early 1980s, plucked from prestigious universities where they had demonstrated exceptional aptitude in virology and genetic engineering. Spencer personally oversaw their recruitment, recognizing in them the combination of brilliance and moral flexibility that Umbrella required. Both men were ambitious, driven by a desire to push the boundaries of science regardless of ethical constraints. Spencer assigned them to work under Marcus at the Arklay Laboratory, a facility located near the executive training school in the Arklay Mountains. Officially, they were there to learn from Marcus and assist with his research. In reality, they were Spencer's spies, tasked with learning everything they could about Marcus's work and reporting directly to Spencer himself. The Arklay Laboratory had been constructed specifically to house Umbrella's most sensitive viral research. Built into the mountains and disguised as a private estate, the facility contained state-of-the-art equipment and extensive containment areas for test subjects. It was here that Birkin and Wesker spent years studying under Marcus, absorbing his knowledge of the T-virus while simultaneously undermining his authority. The relationship between the older researcher and his young protégés was complex. Marcus recognized their talent and took a certain pride in mentoring them, but he also sensed their duplicity. He began withholding certain crucial information, keeping his most important discoveries to himself. This only made Birkin and Wesker more determined to uncover his secrets. By 1988, Spencer had decided that Marcus had outlived his usefulness. The doctor's eccentricities had become more pronounced over the years. He had developed an obsessive attachment to his leeches, treating them almost as children. His research had veered into increasingly esoteric directions, focusing on creating a queen leech that could serve as a hive intelligence for lesser leeches. Spencer viewed this as a waste of resources and a distraction from the T-virus's military applications. He gave Birkin and Wesker their final orders: eliminate Marcus and seize control of his research. On July 29, 1988, the two researchers carried out Spencer's command. They murdered their mentor in his laboratory, making it appear as an accident. They then systematically confiscated all of his research notes, samples, and experimental data. Marcus's death was reported to Umbrella's board as a tragic laboratory incident, and his contributions to the T-virus were quietly attributed to Birkin and Wesker. With Marcus gone, Birkin and Wesker became the primary architects of Umbrella's viral weapons program. They moved their operations fully to the Arklay Laboratory, which became the nerve center for all T-virus research. Birkin proved to be particularly gifted at weaponizing the virus. Where Marcus had been interested in the science for its own sake, Birkin focused ruthlessly on practical applications. He refined the T-virus strains to produce more controllable mutations. He developed protocols for mass-producing BOWs, turning what had been Marcus's artisanal experiments into an industrial process. The Arklay Lab's basement levels were expanded to house dozens of test subjects, both human and animal, in various stages of viral infection and mutation. Wesker, meanwhile, took charge of the BOW combat testing and tactical applications. He designed scenarios to evaluate how effectively the creatures could be deployed in military operations. He was particularly interested in the Tyrant Project, the super soldier concept that Marcus had pioneered but never successfully completed. Wesker believed that with proper genetic screening and viral refinement, a stable Tyrant could be created. He began collecting data on potential host candidates, looking for individuals with rare genetic markers that might allow them to survive the Tyrant virus strain without losing their cognitive functions. However, Birkin's ambitions extended beyond merely perfecting Marcus's work. He recognized that the T-virus, despite its impressive properties, had fundamental limitations. The mutations it caused were powerful but crude, and the resulting BOWs lacked true intelligence. Birkin envisioned something more elegant and more controllable. He began developing a theoretical framework for an entirely new virus, one that would allow for directed evolution rather than chaotic mutation. He called this theoretical pathogen the Golgotha virus, or G-virus. Unlike the T-virus, which attacked and destroyed higher brain functions, the G-virus would theoretically preserve intelligence while granting even more dramatic physical enhancements. It would also, Birkin theorized, allow hosts to pass their mutations on to others, creating a self-propagating weapon. This research was highly preliminary in the late 1980s, but it represented Birkin's attempt to surpass his murdered mentor and create something truly revolutionary. While Birkin threw himself into his research with single-minded intensity, Wesker had begun to pursue a separate agenda. Despite his apparent loyalty to Umbrella, Wesker had been secretly contacted by a rival organization. The exact identity of this competitor remains unclear, but evidence suggests it was a powerful entity with deep connections in the intelligence community. Wesker began feeding them information about Umbrella's research, carefully selected data that would demonstrate his value without completely compromising Umbrella's operations. He was playing a dangerous game, positioning himself to profit regardless of which organization ultimately prevailed in the shadowy world of bioweapons development. This betrayal would have profound consequences in the years to come, though neither Spencer nor Birkin suspected Wesker's duplicity at the time. 28 years after the Progenitor virus first fell into Umbrella's hands, the consequences of decades of secret bioweapons research would finally spill into the public eye. On July 23, 1998, the Raccoon City Police Department's Special Tactics and Rescue Service, better known by its acronym STARS, received orders to investigate a series of bizarre murders plaguing the Arklay Mountains northwest of the city. The victims had been found partially devoured, their bodies bearing signs of attack by what witnesses could only describe as cannibalistic assailants. Local police had already lost several officers attempting to investigate the incidents, and the situation demanded specialized intervention. STARS Bravo Team, a 6-member unit specializing in reconnaissance and rescue operations, lifted off in their Bell 206 helicopter at approximately 2100 hours that evening. The team consisted of Captain Enrico Marini, a veteran tactical commander with years of field experience. Accompanying him were Kenneth Sullivan, the team's reconnaissance specialist and expert tracker. Forrest Spire, a skilled marksman and the team's vehicle specialist, took responsibility for much of their equipment. Richard Aiken served as the team's communications expert, maintaining radio contact with headquarters and coordinating with other units. Kevin Dooley piloted the helicopter, navigating the treacherous mountain terrain in deteriorating weather conditions. And finally, Rebecca Chambers, at just 18 years old, filled the role of team medic despite her youth. A prodigy who had graduated university at an exceptionally young age with a degree in chemistry, Rebecca brought medical expertise that belied her inexperience in actual field operations. The flight into the mountains should have been routine, but as Bravo Team's helicopter penetrated deeper into the Arklay wilderness, the aircraft's instruments began registering unusual readings. The engine sputtered, coughed, and without warning, failed completely. Kevin struggled with the controls as the helicopter lost altitude rapidly, the rotor blades windmilling uselessly. The team braced for impact as the aircraft crashed through the forest canopy, metal shrieking and tearing as branches ripped at the fuselage. The helicopter came to rest in a small clearing, its frame crumpled but largely intact. Miraculously, the team survived the crash with only minor injuries, but their situation had become dire. They were stranded in hostile territory with limited supplies, no air support, and a mission that had suddenly transformed from investigation to survival. Captain Enrico quickly assessed their situation and made the decision to split up, reasoning that smaller groups could cover more ground while searching for shelter and investigating the murders simultaneously. Rebecca, the least experienced member of the team, was instructed to search the area near the crash site while the others fanned out in different directions. As night deepened and a light rain began to fall, Rebecca made her way through the dense forest, her flashlight cutting narrow paths through the darkness. The woods felt wrong somehow, too quiet with none of the usual sounds of nocturnal wildlife. What she did hear, carried on the wind, chilled her blood. Distant howls, but not from any wolf she had ever heard. These sounds carried an almost mechanical quality, a wrongness that set her nerves on edge. After nearly an hour of careful navigation, Rebecca emerged from the tree line onto a set of railway tracks. Following the rails, she soon discovered an overturned military transport vehicle, its cargo scattered across the ground. Among the debris, she found documents indicating the vehicle had been transporting a prisoner. More disturbing were the bodies of the military police officers who had been escorting the transport. They had been killed violently, torn apart by what appeared to be animal attacks, though the wounds seemed inconsistent with any predator native to the region. Before Rebecca could investigate further, she heard the sound of a train approaching. Through the rain and mist, the Ecliptic Express, a luxury passenger train owned by a private company, came into view, moving slowly along the tracks. Strangely, the train appeared to be operating despite the late hour and isolated location. Rebecca boarded the still-moving train through an open door, calling out to identify herself as STRS personnel. No response came. The interior of the train was a scene of absolute carnage. Blood painted the walls and pooled on the floor. Bodies lay scattered throughout the passenger cars, victims of savage attacks. And moving among the corpses were the attackers themselves. Zombies, though Rebecca had no framework at that moment to understand what she was seeing. Reanimated human corpses, their flesh pallid and rotting, their eyes clouded and lifeless, yet somehow still moving, still attacking, driven by an insatiable hunger for living flesh. The T-virus, Umbrella's bioweapon, had transformed the train's passengers and crew into walking nightmares. As Rebecca fought her way through the train cars, desperately searching for survivors and answers, she encountered another living person. Billy Cohen, a 26-year-old former second lieutenant in the United States Marine Corps, had been the prisoner being transported in the overturned vehicle. According to military records, Billy had been convicted of murdering 23 people during a mission in Africa and had been sentenced to death by firing squad. He was being transported to face execution when the vehicle crashed. Billy was armed, dangerous, and by all official accounts, a mass murderer. Yet, something in his demeanor gave Rebecca pause. He showed no hostility toward her, and more importantly, he seemed as confused and horrified by the zombies as she was. The two formed an uneasy alliance born of necessity. Rebecca needed Billy's combat experience and additional firepower. Billy, facing execution if recaptured, needed Rebecca's medical knowledge and her access to STR's resources. As they progressed through the train, they discovered that the zombie outbreak was not the only threat aboard the Ecliptic Express. Massive leeches, each the size of a human hand, infested various sections of the train. These were not ordinary leeches. They moved with coordinated intelligence, swarming in response to threats, and seemed capable of merging together to form larger, more dangerous entities. Stranger still, the leeches appeared to be controlling the train itself, having somehow interfaced with the locomotive systems. The train's destination became clear as it picked up speed, hurtling toward a facility hidden deep in the mountains. Rebecca and Billy barely escaped before the Ecliptic Express crashed directly into the Umbrella Executive Training School, a sprawling complex that had once served as an education and indoctrination center for Umbrella Corporation's management candidates. The facility, built in a grand European style that seemed wildly out of place in the American wilderness, had been abandoned for years, or so it appeared. In reality, the training school sat atop a vast underground research laboratory where some of Umbrella's earliest and most dangerous experiments had been conducted. As Rebecca and Billy explored the training school, they began piecing together a story of betrayal, murder, and revenge that stretched back decades. The facility had once been the domain of Dr. James Marcus, one of Umbrella's 3 founding members alongside Oswald Spencer and Edward Ashford. Marcus had been a brilliant virologist, arguably the most talented of the 3 founders when it came to actual scientific research. While Spencer provided the vision and Ashford contributed the initial Progenitor virus samples, it was Marcus who had done the painstaking work of studying the Progenitor and developing practical applications for it. In this very facility, Marcus had made the breakthrough that would define Umbrella's future. By introducing the Progenitor virus to leach DNA, he had created a new strain with remarkable properties. This new virus, which Marcus designated the Tyrant virus or T-virus, could reanimate dead tissue and dramatically increase the host's aggression and physical resilience. Marcus had been obsessed with leeches, viewing them as the perfect test subjects due to their simple nervous systems and remarkable regenerative capabilities. He had raised colonies of them, studied their behavior, and eventually succeeded in creating a queen leech, a larger specimen that exhibited unprecedented intelligence and the ability to control other leeches through some form of biological communication. Marcus had poured years of his life into this research, treating his leeches almost as children, lavishing attention and care upon his test subjects in a way that his colleagues found deeply unsettling. His 2 most promising students during this period had been Albert Wesker and William Birkin, young researchers who showed exceptional aptitude for virology and bioweapons development, but Marcus's success had ultimately sealed his fate. Oswald Spencer, the true power behind Umbrella, had grown concerned about Marcus's increasing instability and possessiveness regarding his research. More pragmatically, Spencer wanted complete control over the T-virus and saw Marcus as an obstacle. In 1988, 10 years before the events unfolding at the training school, Spencer had ordered Marcus's assassination. The task had fallen to Marcus's own former students. Wesker and Birkin, ambitious and loyal to Spencer rather than their mentor, had murdered Marcus in cold blood, shooting him and leaving his body to fall among his beloved leeches. They had then seized all of Marcus's research, taking credit for his work and using it to advance their own careers within Umbrella. Wesker had eventually been placed in charge of intelligence operations, while Birkin had been given his own laboratory in Raccoon City to continue T-virus development. What Wesker and Birkin had not anticipated was that Marcus's final experiments would bear fruit even after his death. The Queen Leech, the crowning achievement of Marcus's research, had consumed its creator's corpse. In doing so, the leech had absorbed Marcus's genetic material and, impossibly, his memories and consciousness. Over the course of 10 years, the Queen Leech had slowly reconstructed Marcus's body, creating a hybrid organism that looked human but was in fact a colony of leeches mimicking human form. This new entity possessed Marcus's intelligence, his memories, and his all-consuming desire for revenge against those who had betrayed him. The Marcus that Rebecca and Billy encountered was not truly human at all, but rather a biological echo, a ghost made flesh through the very virus he had created. Marcus, or the creature that had once been Marcus, had orchestrated the entire situation. He had released his leeches and T-virus samples into the Arklay Mountains, causing the murders that had drawn ST-ARES into the area. He had infected the Ecliptic Express and sent it crashing into his old laboratory. His goal was nothing less than the complete destruction of Umbrella Corporation, the entity he had helped create and which had repaid him with murder. Marcus revealed this history to Rebecca and Billy through a combination of recorded messages, research documents scattered throughout the facility, and direct confrontation. The creature took perverse pleasure in explaining how he had been wronged, how his genius had been stolen, and how he would now reclaim what was rightfully his by reducing Umbrella's operations to ruins. The training school and its underground laboratory were filled with the results of Marcus's decades of research. Zombies wandered the halls, former researchers and security personnel who had been infected during Marcus's initial outbreak. Eliminators, humans infected with a variant T-virus strain that caused rapid mutations, crawled along the ceilings and walls, their bodies twisted into insectoid forms. Lurkers, massive frogs mutated to enormous size by T-virus exposure, lurked in the facility's water treatment areas. And everywhere, the leeches, forming into humanoid shapes, attacking in coordinated swarms, serving as the eyes and ears of their queen. Rebecca and Billy fought through these horrors, gradually making their way deeper into the facility. They discovered that Marcus had been preparing to launch a full-scale bioterrorist attack, using his leech colonies to spread the T-virus beyond the Arklay Mountains and into populated areas. The two operatives, an inexperienced medic and a convicted criminal, found themselves as the only line of defense against a threat that could potentially devastate the entire region. Their journey through the training school revealed not just Marcus's plans, but also the broader scope of Umbrella's crimes. Documents detailed experiments on unwilling subjects, budget reports showing how Umbrella had funneled legitimate pharmaceutical profits into illegal bioweapons research, and communications between Spencer and various Umbrella executives discussing the T-virus's potential military applications. The final confrontation came in the facility's deepest laboratory, a vast chamber where Marcus had conducted his most ambitious experiments. The Queen Leech, no longer maintaining its human disguise, revealed its true form. The creature was massive, a writhing mass of leeches that had merged into a single organism several stories tall. It retained a grotesque approximation of Marcus's face, allowing it to speak, to taunt, to express the rage and betrayal that had festered for a decade. The battle was desperate and brutal. The Queen Leech could separate into smaller swarms, reform after taking damage, and attacked with both physical strikes and waves of smaller leeches that attempted to infest Rebecca and Billy directly. Rebecca's scientific knowledge proved crucial. She realized that leeches, despite their mutations, retained certain biological vulnerabilities. High-frequency sound waves disrupted their coordination and caused them physical distress. The training school's laboratory contained experimental equipment designed to test various stimuli on test subjects. Rebecca managed to activate a high-frequency transmitter, filling the chamber with sound waves that caused the Queen Leech visible agony. The creature's form began to break apart, individual leeches separating and dying as the sound destroyed the biological signals that allowed them to function as a unified organism. Billy, seizing the opportunity, used the facility's self-destruct system, a failsafe that Umbrella had installed in all its research facilities to prevent evidence from falling into the wrong hands. As explosions rocked the training school and fire spread through the complex, Rebecca and Billy made their escape. They emerged into the pre-dawn light of July 24th, exhausted, injured, but alive. Behind them, the Umbrella Executive Training School collapsed in on itself, bearing Marcus's research and the evidence of his revenge. But their ordeal had forged a bond between them. Rebecca had seen enough to know that Billy was not the monster the military had painted him as. He had fought bravely, protected her repeatedly, and shown genuine horror at the atrocities they had witnessed. When they heard the sound of approaching helicopters, ST-ARS Alpha Team coming to search for their missing comrades, Rebecca made a decision that would violate her duty but honor her conscience. She told Billy to run, to disappear into the wilderness and find a new life far from the military justice that awaited him. When Captain Enrico Marini found her shortly after, Rebecca reported that she had encountered the escaped convict Billy Cohen, and that he had been killed during the incident. She showed Enrico Billy's dog tags, which Billy had given her as proof of his death. Enrico, focused on the larger crisis and the loss of other Bravo team members, accepted her report without extensive questioning. Billy Cohen vanished into the Arklay Mountains, his fate unknown. a ghost who had been given a second chance at life by a young medic who had learned in the span of a single night that the world was far more complex and dangerous than she had ever imagined. Rebecca Chambers, no longer quite so innocent, would rejoin her surviving teammates and continue toward the Spencer Mansion, where the true scope of Umbrella's crimes would finally be revealed. Less than 24 hours after Rebecca Chambers and Billy Cohen escaped the Ecliptic Express, the nightmare in the Arklay Mountains reached its terrible crescendo. On July 24, 1998, the events that would forever change the lives of the surviving STR's members began in earnest. The bizarre murders that had plagued the region for weeks, dismissed by local authorities as animal attacks, had finally drawn enough attention to warrant an official investigation. The Raccoon City Police Department's Elite Special Tactics and Rescue Service, better known as STARS, was called into action. STARS Bravo team received their orders that morning. Led by Enrico Marini, the team consisted of some of the unit's most capable operatives, including Forrest Spire, Kenneth Sullivan, Richard Aiken, and the medic Rebecca Chambers, who had only just returned from her harrowing experience on the train. Their mission seemed straightforward enough: investigate the string of cannibalistic murders in the Arklay Mountains, locate any survivors, and determine the source of the threat. The team boarded their helicopter and departed for the mountains, unaware they were flying directly into Umbrella's web of secrets. The investigation went wrong almost immediately. Bravo team's helicopter experienced sudden catastrophic engine failure over the dense forest, forcing pilot Kevin Dooley to attempt an emergency landing. The crash scattered the team across the mountainside. As they regrouped and attempted to assess their situation, the team encountered something that defied all their training and experience. A pack of dogs emerged from the trees, but these were not ordinary animals. The creatures were hideously mutated, their flesh rotting and peeling away to reveal exposed muscle and bone, their eyes clouded with death yet burning with predatory hunger. These were Cerberus units, Doberman pinschers infected with the T-virus and transformed into biological weapons. The attack was swift and brutal. The team scattered, calling for backup as they fought to survive against enemies that should have been dead but refused to stop. STRS, Alpha Team, led by Captain Albert Wesker, received Bravo Team's distress call that evening. Wesker assembled his team: Chris Redfield, a former Air Force pilot with exceptional marksmanship skills; Jill Valentine, a skilled lockpick and demolitions expert with Delta Force training; Barry Burton, the team's weapons specialist and a family man with years of SWAT experience; Joseph Frost, a vehicle specialist; and pilot Brad Vickers. The team departed immediately, flying into the mountains as night fell, following the last known coordinates of Bravo Team's helicopter. The forest below was dark and unwelcoming, and an unnatural fog had settled over the region. Alpha Team located the crashed helicopter in a clearing, its wreckage still smoldering. The team disembarked to investigate, finding the site abandoned but showing clear signs of a struggle. As they searched the area, they discovered the first body. Joseph Frost was examining what appeared to be a severed hand when the Cerberus pack struck. The mutated dogs burst from the tree line with terrifying speed. Joseph was the first to fall, dragged down and torn apart before his teammates could react. The remaining Alpha Team members opened fire, but the creatures absorbed bullets that should have dropped them instantly. Brad Vickers, panicking in the helicopter, took off without waiting for the team, leaving them stranded and under attack. With ammunition running low and more infected dogs closing in, Wesker made the only decision available. He ordered the team to retreat toward a mansion that loomed in the distance, its lights visible through the trees. The team ran through the forest, the snarling of the Cerberus pack close behind them. Chris, Jill, Barry, and Wesker reached the mansion's front gates and burst through the main doors, slamming them shut just as the infected dogs reached the entrance. Inside, they found themselves in a grand entrance hall that seemed impossibly luxurious for a building in such a remote location. The mansion was decorated with expensive artwork, ornate furniture, and elaborate architectural details. It appeared to be the estate of someone with considerable wealth and refined tastes. But the silence was oppressive, and there were signs that something terrible had happened here. Bloodstains marked the floors, furniture was overturned, and there was a smell in the air, the unmistakable scent of death and decay. Wesker quickly organized the team. They would split up to cover more ground, searching for survivors from Bravo Team, looking for supplies and weapons, and finding a way to call for rescue. He assigned Barry to accompany Jill, while he would search alongside Chris. The mansion was vast, a labyrinth of corridors, locked doors, and hidden passages. As they explored, the true nature of their refuge became horrifyingly clear. The mansion was not simply an estate. It was a facade, a cover for something far more sinister. Jill and Chris, exploring separate wings of the mansion, encountered the first zombies within minutes of splitting up. These were not the infected dogs from outside, but human beings, or what remained of them. Former researchers and staff members of the facility, they had been transformed by the T-virus into shambling corpses driven by an insatiable hunger for human flesh. The creatures moved with jerky, uncoordinated motions, their bodies in various states of decomposition, their jaws working mindlessly as they reached for the living. The first encounter was shocking, forcing the STRS members to overcome their instinct to see these things as human and recognize them as threats that had to be neutralized. Headshots proved most effective, though even that sometimes required multiple rounds to stop the creatures permanently. As the investigation continued, the mansion revealed its secrets layer by layer. They found documents, research notes, and files that painted a disturbing picture. The Spencer Mansion, as it was known, was built by Oswell E. Spencer himself, one of Umbrella's founding members. But the estate was never meant to be a home. It was constructed as a front for a massive underground research facility, a laboratory where Umbrella conducted its most classified and illegal experiments. The entire complex was designed to test and develop biological weapons, specifically BOWs, bioorganic weapons. The mansion itself was filled with elaborate puzzles and security systems, not as decorative flourishes, but as a testing ground, a way to measure the problem-solving capabilities and combat effectiveness of the creatures created in the labs below. The documents they discovered detailed years of research into the T-virus and its applications. They learned that the virus had been derived from the Progenitor virus through decades of research, refined specifically to create controllable biological weapons. The files described numerous test subjects, both animal and human, and the various BOW projects that had been developed. There were the Cerberus units they had already encountered. There were hunters, reptilian creatures created by combining human DNA with reptile genes and exposing the resulting embryos to the T-virus, producing fast, intelligent, and incredibly lethal predators. There were chimeras, insect-human hybrids that could cling to ceilings and spit acid. And there were the zombies, the simplest and most numerous result of T-virus infection, dismissed by Umbrella as failures because they lacked the intelligence and controllability desired in a weapon, yet kept as test subjects and obstacles. Chris discovered the body of Kenneth Sullivan, one of Bravo Team's members, being devoured by a zombie in a small room filled with research materials. Jill found Forrest Spire on an outdoor balcony, his body riddled with wounds and reanimated, forcing her to put down her former colleague. Richard Aiken was discovered badly wounded, having been poisoned by a giant snake, a creature created through T-virus exposure that had grown to monstrous proportions. Richard survived long enough to give them information about the mansion's layout and warn them about the dangers below before succumbing to his injuries. The team also found Enrico Marini, Bravo Team's leader, in the underground sections of the facility. Enrico had uncovered evidence of a traitor within STRs, someone working for Umbrella, but before he could reveal the identity, he was shot by an unseen assailant, dying before he could name the mole. The deeper they explored, the more elaborate the facility became. Beneath the mansion lay a vast network of laboratories, testing areas, and holding cells. They found the Aqua Ring, an underground water treatment and research area where aquatic BOWs were developed. They discovered living quarters for researchers, medical facilities, and power generation systems. The complex was entirely self-sufficient, designed to operate independently for extended periods. And everywhere they looked, there was evidence of the outbreak that had consumed the facility. The T-virus had escaped containment, likely due to sabotage or accident, and had spread throughout the entire complex within days. The researchers had become the test subjects, the hunters had become the hunted, and the facility had transformed into a tomb. Barry Burton's behavior throughout the investigation had been erratic, and the reason eventually became clear. Albert Wesker had been manipulating him from the beginning. Wesker had threatened Barry's family, using them as leverage to force the weapons specialist to follow orders. Barry had been instructed to confiscate ammunition from Jill, to lead her into dangerous situations, and to report on the team's progress. The revelation of this coercion added another layer of betrayal to the nightmare, though Barry ultimately chose to side with his teammates when the full scope of Wesker's treachery was revealed. The truth about Albert Wesker emerged in the depths of the facility. The STRS captain was not simply a corrupt officer on Umbrella's payroll. He was a researcher himself, a former employee of Umbrella's intelligence division who had been planted within the Raccoon City Police Department years earlier. His entire career in law enforcement had been a cover, a way to gather intelligence and maintain Umbrella's influence within the city. More than that, Wesker had orchestrated the entire incident. He had arranged for both teams to be sent into the mountains, had ensured the helicopter crashes, and had guided the survivors to the mansion. His goal was to gather combat data on the various BOWs by pitting them against highly trained Special Forces operatives. The ST-ARS members were not investigators or rescuers. They were test subjects, their struggles and battles carefully monitored to assess the effectiveness of Umbrella's biological weapons. In the lowest levels of the facility, in a specialized laboratory, Wesker revealed his final card. The Tyrant, designated T-CESO-2, was Umbrella's most advanced BOW, the culmination of years of research into creating the perfect biological weapon. The creature stood over 7 feet tall, its body heavily mutated but retaining a humanoid shape. Its right arm had been transformed into a massive claw, capable of impaling a human being with a single strike. Unlike the mindless zombies, the Tyrant retained enough intelligence to follow basic commands and assess tactical situations. It was fast, strong, nearly invulnerable to conventional weapons, and represented everything Umbrella had been working toward. Wesker activated the Tyrant, intending to use it to eliminate the surviving STRS members and complete his data collection. But the creature was not as controllable as Umbrella had hoped. Upon awakening, the Tyrant immediately attacked the nearest living thing, which happened to be Wesker himself. The creature's claw pierced through Wesker's chest, lifting him off the ground before hurling him aside. Wesker collapsed, apparently dead, his body lying motionless as the Tyrant turned its attention to the remaining STRS members. The battle against the Tyrant was desperate. Chris and Jill, along with whichever other team members had survived the mansion's horrors, focused their fire on the creature. Standard ammunition barely slowed it down. The tyrant moved with frightening speed for something so large, its claw strikes powerful enough to kill instantly. The fight pushed them to their limits, forcing them to use every weapon and resource they had gathered throughout their investigation. Eventually, concentrated fire from heavy weapons managed to bring the creature down, its body collapsing as its regenerative capabilities were finally overwhelmed. But the nightmare was not over. The facility's self-destruct sequence had been activated, likely by Wesker before his apparent death or triggered automatically as a failsafe. Warning sirens blared throughout the complex as a computerized voice announced the countdown. The entire mansion and all the underground laboratories were rigged with explosives, designed to destroy all evidence of Umbrella's research if the facility was ever compromised. Chris, Jill, Barry, and Rebecca Chambers, who had reunited with Alpha Team during the chaos, raced back through the corridors they had explored, dodging remaining BOWs and collapsing passages as the countdown continued. They reached the mansion's helipad just as the timer reached its final seconds. Brad Vickers, overcoming his earlier cowardice, or perhaps motivated by guilt, had returned with the helicopter. As the team climbed aboard, the tyrant, impossibly still alive, burst through the floor of the helipad for one final attack. In some accounts, Brad dropped a rocket launcher to the team, allowing them to destroy the creature once and for all. In others, they managed to evade it long enough for the explosions to begin. Either way, the helicopter lifted off just as the Spencer mansion erupted in a series of massive explosions. The entire complex, all the laboratories, all the research, all the evidence of Umbrella's crimes was consumed in fire and rubble. As they flew away from the burning ruins, the surviving ST-Aris members tried to process what they had experienced. They had lost friends and colleagues. They had discovered that their captain was a traitor. They had learned of a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of corporate and political power. And they knew that Umbrella Corporation, one of the most powerful companies in the world, would do anything to keep its secrets buried. What they did not know, what they could not have known, was that Albert Wesker had not died in the laboratory. Before entering the facility, he had injected himself with an experimental virus, a prototype that would grant him superhuman abilities if he survived the process. The tyrant's attack had killed him, but the virus had brought him back, transforming him into something more than human. As the mansion burned, Wesker awakened in the ruins, his eyes now glowing with an unnatural light, his body enhanced with speed and strength far beyond normal human limits. He escaped the facility, his apparent death providing the perfect cover for his next moves in a game that was far from over. 2 months after the mansion incident, the nightmare that began in the Arklay Mountains finally reaches its horrific conclusion. On September 28, 1998, the T-virus outbreak that STRS had desperately tried to warn Raccoon City about spreads beyond containment, transforming the entire metropolis into a hellscape of the undead. While Leon Kennedy and Claire Redfield are fighting for survival in the police station, another STRS veteran is already deep into her own desperate battle for escape. Jill Valentine, having spent the past 2 months investigating Umbrella's activities and preparing evidence to expose the corporation, finds herself trapped in the city as the outbreak explodes across every district. Unlike Leon and Claire, who arrive as the chaos unfolds, Jill has been living through the gradual deterioration of Raccoon City, watching as isolated incidents of cannibalistic attacks slowly escalated into full civic collapse. By September 28th, the city's infrastructure is failing. Fires rage unchecked through entire neighborhoods, and the streets are choked with the shambling forms of former citizens. Jill's extensive combat training and experience from the mansion incident give her an edge, but even she is unprepared for the scale of devastation that greets her as she ventures out of her apartment in her final bid to escape. The burning streets of Raccoon City present a vision of urban apocalypse. Abandoned vehicles block major thoroughfares, their owners either fled or transformed. The undead are everywhere, not in the contained environment of a mansion, but spread across miles of city blocks, their numbers seemingly endless. Jill navigates through this chaos with tactical precision, conserving ammunition and avoiding large groups when possible. The infected dogs Cerberuses created through T-virus exposure are even more dangerous in the urban environment than they were in the forest, using the narrow alleys and tight corners to ambush survivors. These creatures retain the pack-hunting instincts of their canine origins, but possess inhuman speed and resilience, their exposed muscle tissue and visible bone giving them a nightmarish appearance. As Jill makes her way toward what she hopes will be an evacuation route, she encounters something far worse than the standard infected. Outside the Raccoon City Police Department, a towering figure emerges from the flames and smoke. Standing over 7 feet tall, wrapped in a black coat and armed with a rocket launcher, this creature moves with purpose rather than the aimless wandering of typical zombies. The Nemesis T-type, designated as such because it represents the culmination of Umbrella's Tyrant program combined with the experimental NE-alpha parasite, has been deployed with a single mission: eliminate all surviving STARS members. Unlike the T-Quire-2 encountered in the mansion, which was a prototype with limited intelligence, the Nemesis possesses advanced cognitive functions. It can operate weapons, follow complex orders, and, most terrifyingly, it can speak. Its first words to Jill are simple and chilling: STARS. The Nemesis represents Umbrella's attempt to solve the fundamental problem with bioorganic weapons: control and intelligence. Previous Tyrant models were powerful but lacked the capacity for sophisticated tactical thinking. The NE alpha parasite implanted in the Nemesis T-type's brain provides a degree of control and enhanced cognitive function while maintaining the creature's aggressive combat capabilities. The result is a bioorganic weapon that can be given specific targets and trusted to pursue them with relentless determination. Umbrella has deployed the Nemesis to Raccoon City not merely to test its combat effectiveness, but to eliminate the STR's members who know too much about the corporation's illegal activities. Jill, as one of the few surviving members still in the city, has become its primary target. Jill takes refuge in the Raccoon City Police Department, the same building where Leon and Claire will soon fight for survival. However, when Jill arrives, the station is in a different state of chaos. The building is largely overrun, with most officers either dead, transformed, or fled. The elaborate defense measures that Irons had prepared are already failing. Jill finds scattered survivors and evidence of desperate last stands, but the station offers little sanctuary. The police force, already decimated by Iron's sabotage and the sudden outbreak, cannot provide the organized resistance she had hoped to find. The building serves only as a temporary respite before she must venture back into the infected streets. It is during her time near the police station that Jill encounters members of the Umbrella Biohazard Countermeasure Service, known as UBCS, a private military company ostensibly deployed to rescue civilians and contain the outbreak. Carlos Oliveira, a UBCS mercenary with a casual demeanor that belies his combat expertise, becomes Jill's unlikely ally. Carlos is accompanied by other members of his squad, including Mikhail Victor, a grizzled veteran who serves as the squad's leader and moral center, and Nikolai Zinoviev, whose cold efficiency and suspicious behavior immediately set him apart from his more idealistic teammates. These mercenaries present themselves as rescue workers armed with military-grade weapons and equipment, attempting to evacuate civilians and establish safe zones throughout the city. The city descends further into chaos as the infection spreads with exponential speed. What began as isolated incidents in the previous days has become a complete societal collapse. Emergency services have ceased functioning, communication networks are failing, and the military has established a perimeter around the city rather than attempting to enter and assist. The UBCS forces, despite their training and equipment, are woefully inadequate for the scale of the disaster. Squads are overrun, communication breaks down, and the mercenaries find themselves fighting not to save the city but simply to survive. The few civilians still alive are scattered and terrified, hiding in basements and barricaded buildings, hoping for rescue that may never come. As Jill works alongside Carlos, she learns disturbing truths about the UBCS and their true purpose in Raccoon City. The organization is not an independent rescue force, but a wholly owned subsidiary of Umbrella Corporation itself. Many of the mercenaries, Carlos included, were recruited from various military backgrounds and conflict zones around the world, often without full knowledge of their employer's true nature. The UBCS serves multiple functions for Umbrella, providing plausible deniability through a corporate buffer, gathering combat data on bioorganic weapons in real-world conditions, and eliminating evidence of the corporation's involvement in the outbreak. The mercenaries are, in many ways, as much test subjects as they are soldiers, their encounters with the infected providing valuable data that Umbrella's scientists monitor from a safe distance. The Nemesis continues its relentless pursuit of Jill throughout the city, demonstrating capabilities that far exceed any bioorganic weapon previously encountered. Its advanced intelligence allows it to track Jill across multiple city blocks, anticipate her movements, and even set ambushes. The creature wields a rocket launcher with disturbing accuracy, destroying vehicles and buildings in its attempts to eliminate its target. When conventional weapons prove insufficient, the Nemesis demonstrates its ability to adapt, using its massive tentacles to grab and crush obstacles or enemies. Each encounter with the creature becomes a desperate struggle for survival, with Jill forced to use every resource and tactical advantage available to escape. Jill and Carlos navigate through various infected areas as they search for a way out of the city. The downtown district, once the bustling commercial heart of Raccoon City, is now a war zone of burning buildings and wandering undead. The subway system, which might have offered an escape route, has become a death trap filled with infected commuters and collapsed tunnels. Every location tells a story of the outbreak's rapid progression, hastily abandoned checkpoints, failed barricades, and the remains of those who tried and failed to survive. The two work together with an efficiency born of necessity, Jill's STARS training complementing Carlos's military experience. Throughout her journey, Jill discovers mounting evidence of Umbrella's direct involvement in the outbreak and their sinister motives behind the UBCS deployment. Documents found in Umbrella facilities reveal that the corporation is using the Raccoon City outbreak as a massive field test for their bioorganic weapons, with the UBCS mercenaries serving as unwitting test subjects to gauge the creature's combat effectiveness against trained soldiers. The deployment is not a genuine rescue operation, but a carefully orchestrated experiment, with Umbrella's executives and scientists observing from remote locations and gathering data that will inform future bioorganic weapon development. The civilians and mercenaries dying in the streets are nothing more than data points in Umbrella's research, their suffering and death calculated into the corporation's cost-benefit analysis. For Jill, who has already witnessed Umbrella's callous disregard for human life in the Arklay Mountains, this confirmation of the corporation's willingness to sacrifice an entire city solidifies her determination to expose and destroy the organization, assuming she can survive long enough to escape Raccoon City's burning streets. Just a few months after the Spencer Mansion incident, the true scale of Umbrella's biological warfare ambitions would be laid bare for all to see. Our timeline now brings us to September 29th, 1998, a date that would forever be etched into the annals of biohazard history, the Raccoon City outbreak. This is where the story of Resident Evil 2 Remake unfolds, a harrowing tale of survival against an unstoppable tide of biological horror. On this fateful day, a fresh-faced police officer, Leon S. Kennedy, arrived in Raccoon City, eager to begin his first day on the force. He was a man full of ideals, ready to serve and protect, blissfully unaware that the city he was sworn to uphold was already teetering on the brink of absolute collapse. His journey into the heart of darkness began not with a bang, but with the eerie quiet of an abandoned highway. Simultaneously, another individual was making her way to Raccoon City. Claire Redfield, a spirited college student with a penchant for motorcycles, had come to the city searching for her older brother, Chris Redfield. Chris, a member of the elite STRS and Special Tactics and Rescue Service unit, had gone silent after the mansion incident, and Claire, concerned for his safety, had come to investigate. The paths of these two strangers converged at a gas station on the outskirts of Raccoon City. It was a brief, almost surreal encounter, a moment of fleeting normalcy before the nightmare truly began. They quickly realized the severity of the situation as they were swarmed by the ravenous undead, the first tangible proof that something was terribly wrong. Their desperate attempt to escape together was cut short when a truck, driven by a zombified driver, careened into their path, separating them and forcing them to find their own ways into the city. This sudden, violent separation marked the true beginning of their individual struggles for survival within the infected metropolis. Their separate journeys eventually led them to the Raccoon City Police Department, a seemingly impenetrable fortress that had, by then, become a charnel house. The once bustling station, a symbol of order and justice, was now a labyrinth of barricaded hallways, blood-splattered offices, and the chilling moans of the infected. Every shadow seemed to conceal a lurking danger, every corner a potential ambush. Leon, as a police officer, found himself navigating the very halls he had once dreamed of patrolling, now transformed into a deadly battlefield. Claire, on the other hand, was an outsider, relying on her wits and resilience to survive in an environment designed to be a safe haven, but was now anything but. The station itself became a character in their story, a monument to the city's fall, filled with environmental puzzles and the lingering ghosts of its former occupants. They had to contend not just with the standard shambling zombies, but also with more grotesque mutations, the result of the T-virus, tyrant virus, spreading unchecked throughout the population. Lickers, grotesque creatures with exposed brains and razor-sharp claws clung to ceilings, ready to drop onto unsuspecting victims. Cerberus dogs, once loyal companions, now hunted with rabid ferocity. Within the decaying police station, Leon encountered Marvin Branna, a veteran RPD officer. Marvin, despite being grievously wounded and infected, provided Leon with crucial guidance and information, explaining the situation as best he could and offering advice on how to navigate the station. He represented the last vestiges of the RPD's dedication, a tragic figure who, even in his final moments, tried to help. His eventual succumbing to the infection served as a stark reminder of the T-virus's relentless progression, a grim foreshadowing of the fate awaiting anyone who couldn't escape the city. His transformation was a poignant moment, illustrating the human cost of Umbrella's hubris. As Claire delved deeper into the police station, she stumbled upon a heartbreaking discovery, a diary detailing the tragic fate of the orphanage children. This orphanage, located within or near the police station grounds, had been unknowingly subjected to Umbrella's insidious experiments. The diary entries painted a grim picture of children falling ill, exhibiting strange symptoms, and ultimately succumbing to the burgeoning viral outbreak. It was a chilling revelation, exposing the true depths of Umbrella's depravity and their willingness to sacrifice innocent lives for their scientific pursuits. This discovery fueled Claire's resolve, transforming her personal search for Chris into a broader mission to expose Umbrella and protect the vulnerable. The orphanage, once a place of refuge, had become another casualty of corporate greed, a stark reminder of the innocent lives caught in the crossfire. Their separate investigations eventually led them to a far more profound and terrifying threat: William Birkin. Birkin, a brilliant but morally bankrupt Umbrella scientist, was the primary developer of the G virus, Golkovich virus, a far more potent and mutagenic viral strain than the T virus. He had been shot by Umbrella's USS, or Umbrella Security Service Delta team, led by the ruthless Hunk, in an attempt to seize his G virus samples. In a desperate act of self-preservation, Birkin injected himself with his own creation, transforming him into a monstrous, constantly mutating entity known as G-forms. These grotesque transformations, each more horrifying than the last, were driven by an insatiable desire to reproduce and spread the G-virus, making him a relentless and terrifying antagonist throughout their ordeal. His presence introduced a new level of biological horror, showcasing the unpredictable and devastating potential of the G-virus. It was during these harrowing events that Leon encountered Ada Wong, an enigmatic and alluring woman who initially claimed to be an FBI agent investigating Umbrella. Ada presented herself as a professional, focused on her mission to expose the corporation's illicit activities. Her calm demeanor and apparent expertise offered a glimmer of hope amidst the chaos, suggesting a larger, more organized effort to combat Umbrella. However, her true motives and allegiances remained shrouded in mystery, adding a layer of intrigue and suspicion to her interactions with Leon. She was a master manipulator, using her charm and intelligence to navigate the treacherous landscape of Raccoon City. Meanwhile, Claire's path crossed with Sherry Birkin, a young, vulnerable girl who was fleeing from her mutated father, William Birkin. Sherry was the innocent victim of her parents' scientific ambitions, caught in the crossfire of corporate espionage and viral outbreaks. Her fear and helplessness resonated deeply with Claire, who instinctively took on a protective role, vowing to keep Sherry safe from the horrors that pursued them. Sherry's presence added a significant emotional weight to Claire's narrative, transforming her quest from a personal search for her brother into a desperate fight to protect an innocent child. The bond that formed between them was a beacon of humanity in the face of unspeakable evil. Leon, guided by Ada, eventually infiltrated the Nest Laboratory, a sprawling underground research facility beneath Raccoon City. This hidden complex was Umbrella's primary G-Virus research and development site, a testament to their clandestine operations. Ada's true objective in Nest became clear. She was not merely investigating Umbrella, but actively attempting to retrieve a sample of the G-Virus for her own, as yet unknown employers. Her actions in Nest highlighted the complex web of corporate espionage and competing interests surrounding Umbrella's bioorganic weapons. Leon, initially trusting her, slowly began to question her true intentions as her methods grew increasingly ambiguous and morally gray. The Nest laboratory itself was a marvel of Umbrella's engineering, a sterile and advanced facility that stood in stark contrast to the decaying city above, a chilling reminder of the scientific brilliance that had been perverted for destructive purposes. The lab was a maze of biometric scanners, advanced security systems, and grotesque experiments, a true testament to the dangers of unchecked scientific ambition. Concurrently, Claire's unwavering commitment to Sherry's safety led them through the perilous sewers and deeper into the Nest laboratory. William Birkin, in his increasingly mutated G-forms, relentlessly pursued Sherry, driven by a primal instinct to infect his own offspring with the G-Virus, a twisted form of viral propagation. Claire repeatedly put herself in harm's way, battling the monstrous Birkin and other bioorganic weapons, BOWs, to shield Sherry from his terrifying grasp. Their journey through the sewers was a claustrophobic and terrifying ordeal, filled with mutated alligators and other horrors, a stark contrast to the relatively open spaces of the police station. The sewers served as a transitional zone, a grimy and dangerous pathway to the sterile horrors of the Nest lab. Within the depths of the Nest laboratory, a crucial encounter occurred between Claire and Annette Birkin, William's wife and a fellow Umbrella scientist. Annette, initially hostile and defensive, eventually revealed the shocking truth behind the G-Virus's creation and her husband's horrific mutation. She explained Umbrella's involvement in the development of the virus, their ruthless pursuit of bioorganic weapons, and the circumstances that led to William injecting himself. Annette's revelations provided critical context to the unfolding nightmare, exposing the intricate web of corporate conspiracy and personal tragedy that had brought Raccoon City to its knees. She was a woman torn between her loyalty to her husband's work and the horrifying consequences of his ambition, a tragic figure caught in the very web she helped weave. Her confession was a moment of profound revelation, shedding light on the true architects of the city's destruction. As the city succumbed to the escalating biohazard, Leon, Claire, and Sherry, against all odds, managed to escape Raccoon City via an underground train. This dilapidated train, a relic of a bygone era, became their last hope for survival, a desperate dash towards freedom as the city around them was consumed by fire and the relentless march of the undead. Their escape was a race against time, a final, desperate struggle against William Birkin in his ultimate, most monstrous G-form, who pursued them even onto the train. The train itself became the final battleground, a confined space where they had to confront the culmination of Umbrella's scientific hubris. The city, once a vibrant metropolis, was utterly destroyed, a smoldering monument to Umbrella's unchecked power and the devastating consequences of their actions. The image of the burning city, viewed from the departing train, was a powerful and haunting tableau, signifying the end of an era and the beginning of a new, more dangerous world. The events of Raccoon City were not merely a localized outbreak but a global wake-up call, a stark demonstration of the destructive potential of bioorganic weapons and the insidious nature of corporate power. Leon, Claire, and Sherry, though scarred by their experiences, emerged as survivors, forever changed by the horrors they had witnessed and the battles they had fought. Their escape marked a pivotal moment, not just for them, but for the entire world, as the truth about Umbrella began to slowly, painfully come to light. The world, previously unaware of the true extent of Umbrella's depravity, was now forced to confront the horrifying reality of bioorganic warfare. The destruction of Raccoon City was a grim testament to the fact that some secrets are too dangerous to keep, and some scientific ambitions too reckless to pursue. The lingering question, as they sped away from the inferno, was not if, but when, the next biohazard would strike. Their journey out of the burning city was not an end, but a beginning, a prelude to a much larger global conflict against the insidious forces that sought to weaponize life itself. The world would never be the same. We now arrive at the second half of Resident Evil 3, Nemesis, a direct continuation of the desperate struggle for survival unfolding in Raccoon City. As the calendar turns to October 1st, 1998, the city's fate is sealed, but the fight for individual lives persists with relentless intensity. Jill Valentine, having been infected by the T-virus during her harrowing encounters with the relentless Nemesis bioweapon, finds herself in a critical state. Her body, weakened by the pathogen, is succumbing to its devastating effects. The infection, a direct result of Nemesis's aggressive pursuit and its ability to inject the virus directly into its victims, leaves her unconscious and vulnerable, highlighting the sheer biological threat posed by Umbrella's creations. This period of incapacitation is not merely a plot device, but a crucial demonstration of the T-virus's rapid progression and its systemic impact on even a highly trained individual like Jill. Her survival hinges entirely on the swift actions of her unexpected ally. Carlos Oliveira, the UBCS mercenary, demonstrates a profound sense of loyalty and courage that transcends his initial mercenary detachment. Recognizing the gravity of Jill's condition, he embarks on a perilous mission to secure a vaccine. His journey takes him deep into the heart of Raccoon City, navigating through streets now swarming with increasingly aggressive, mutated creatures and the remnants of Umbrella's collapsed security forces. His destination is one of Umbrella's clandestine facilities within the city, a place undoubtedly designed to house both the very pathogens causing the outbreak and, crucially, their potential antidotes. This facility, a testament to Umbrella's duplicitous nature, serves as a grim reminder that the corporation that unleashed the horror also held the keys to its temporary containment. Carlos's determination is fueled not just by a sense of duty, but by a growing personal connection to Jill, whom he has come to respect deeply. After facing numerous bioorganic weapons, including lickers and hunters, and overcoming the facility's automated defenses, Carlos successfully locates and retrieves a potent T-virus vaccine. This vaccine, a highly specialized antiviral agent, is designed to neutralize the T-virus within the host system, halting its progression and allowing the body's natural defenses to recover. Without hesitation, he administers the life-saving dose to Jill. The vaccine works, albeit with a period of recovery. Jill awakens from her viral-induced coma, disoriented but alive in the partially destroyed St. Michael's Clock Tower. This iconic landmark, a symbol of Raccoon City's former grandeur, now stands as a stark testament to the devastation that has swept through the metropolis. The damage to the clock tower, likely inflicted during the earlier skirmishes with Nemesis or by the general chaos of the outbreak, serves as an immediate visual cue of the ongoing danger. Jill's recovery is not instantaneous, but the worst of the infection has passed, allowing her to regain her faculties and resume her desperate struggle for escape. Her renewed consciousness brings with it a fresh wave of determination, tempered by the grim reality of her surroundings. The city is still a death trap, and Nemesis, her relentless pursuer, is still out there. With her strength slowly returning, Jill continues her perilous journey through the ruins of Raccoon City. Her path leads her through the Raccoon City Park, an area that was once a serene urban oasis but has now been transformed into a twisted, overgrown landscape teeming with mutated plant life and various Umbrella bioweapons. The park showcases the T-virus's ability to infect and mutate not just animal life, but also flora, creating new and unexpected environmental hazards. She then navigates the Dead Factory, a sprawling and eerie industrial complex that belies its true, sinister purpose. Throughout these treacherous locations, Jill encounters a horrifying array of Umbrella's bioorganic weapons, BOWs, each more grotesque and deadly than the last. Lickers, with their exposed brains and razor-sharp tongues, stalk the shadows. Hunters, agile and vicious, lie in wait. And of course, the ever-present threat of zombies, shambling and relentless, forces Jill to conserve her precious ammunition and make every shot count. These encounters are not merely obstacles, they are a constant, terrifying reminder of Umbrella's unchecked ambition and the catastrophic consequences of their biological research. During this grueling escape, Jill finds herself confronting Nemesis multiple times. Each encounter is a brutal test of her combat skills, her resilience, and her sheer will to survive. Nemesis, now more mutated and aggressive than ever, adapts to her tactics, relentlessly pursuing her through corridors, across rooftops, and into the very heart of the city's industrial zones. Its signature rocket launcher and powerful tentacle attacks make it a truly formidable foe. These battles are not quick skirmishes. They are drawn-out, desperate struggles where Jill must utilize every weapon at her disposal, from her trusty handgun to powerful grenades and even environmental hazards, to inflict damage upon the monstrous bioweapon. Each time she manages to temporarily incapacitate or drive back Nemesis, but its regenerative capabilities and single-minded pursuit mean that true victory remains elusive. The creature, a pinnacle of Umbrella's bioweapon development, embodies the corporation's desire for an unstoppable, intelligent killing machine, and its relentless pursuit of Jill is a chilling testament to its programming. It is within the confines of the Dead Factory that Jill uncovers its true, horrifying purpose. This seemingly abandoned industrial complex is not merely a defunct manufacturing plant, it is a clandestine disposal and research facility for Umbrella's bioweapons. Here, the discarded, failed, or surplus BOWs were brought for termination, study, or further experimentation. The factory's machinery, designed for industrial processing, has been repurposed for the gruesome task of dissecting and incinerating biological abominations. The air is thick with the stench of decay and chemicals, and the facility's blueprints and data logs, if she can access them, would reveal the full extent of Umbrella's unethical practices. This discovery provides Jill with a deeper understanding of the scale of Umbrella's operations and the sheer disregard they have for human life and ethical boundaries. The Dead Factory is a chilling monument to Umbrella's hubris, a place where the consequences of their scientific pursuits were swept under the rug, only to resurface in the most catastrophic way imaginable. As Jill continues her fight for survival, a far greater, more devastating decision is being made at the highest levels of government. The US government, having observed the complete collapse of Raccoon City's infrastructure and the inability of conventional forces to contain the T-virus outbreak, reaches a grim conclusion. The situation is beyond salvage. To prevent the global spread of the T-virus and to sterilize the city of its biological contaminants, the President of the United States authorizes a full-scale missile strike. This decision, made with heavy hearts and under immense pressure, signifies the ultimate failure of Umbrella Corporation's containment protocols and the sheer destructive power of the bioweapons they unleashed. The impending missile strike is a final, desperate act to prevent a global pandemic, sacrificing an entire city and its remaining inhabitants to save the world. The countdown to oblivion has begun, adding an unbearable layer of urgency to Jill's escape. Aware of the impending destruction, Jill and Carlos, now reunited and working as a cohesive unit, must find a way out of the doomed city. Their path leads them to the Umbrella facility's underground waste disposal area. This subterranean network, designed to handle the hazardous byproducts of Umbrella's research and manufacturing, ironically becomes their last hope for escape. The waste disposal area, a labyrinth of pipes, machinery, and noxious chemicals, is a dangerous environment in itself, but it represents the only viable route away from the surface, which is moments away from being obliterated. The urgency of their situation is palpable. Every second counts as they navigate the treacherous pathways, knowing that the entire city is about to be wiped off the map. This area, ironically designed for waste, now holds the key to their survival, a grim commentary on Umbrella's self-serving operations. It is within this grim, subterranean environment that Jill engages in her final, brutal battle with the heavily mutated Nemesis. The creature, having sustained immense damage throughout their previous encounters, has undergone a horrific transformation. Its skin is sloughed away in places, revealing raw, pulsating flesh, and its internal organs are grotesquely exposed. Its tentacles have grown larger and more numerous, and its movements are more erratic, driven by a primal, unyielding rage. This final form of Nemesis, often referred to as the Nemesis T-type, is a testament to the T-virus's ability to continuously mutate and adapt, even in the face of overwhelming damage. This is not merely a monster, it is a symbol of Umbrella's ultimate failure and the destructive power they wielded. Jill, battered and exhausted, knows this is her last stand. She discovers a powerful railgun within the facility, a highly advanced electromagnetic weapon designed for penetrating heavily armored targets. Recognizing its potential, she seizes the opportunity, aiming the devastating weapon at the grotesque abomination. With a final, thunderous roar, the railgun unleashes its destructive power, obliterating Nemesis once and for all. The creature, which had haunted her every step, is finally vanquished, its reign of terror brought to a definitive end. With Nemesis finally defeated and the city's destruction imminent, Jill and Carlos make their desperate escape. Their path leads them to a designated extraction point where, against all odds, a helicopter appears on the horizon. At the controls is none other than Barry Burton, a familiar face and a fellow STRS member who has miraculously survived the horrors of Raccoon City and returned to save his comrades. Barry's arrival is a moment of profound relief and a testament to the enduring bonds of friendship and loyalty within the STRS unit. As the helicopter ascends, carrying Jill, Carlos, and Barry away from the inferno, the city below is consumed by a blinding flash of light and a deafening roar. The missile strike, authorized by the US government, successfully sterilizes Raccoon City, reducing it to a smoldering crater. The once vibrant metropolis, a testament to human ingenuity and ambition, is now nothing more than a radioactive wasteland, a grim monument to Umbrella's catastrophic experiments and the T-virus's devastating power. Jill and Carlos, having endured unimaginable horrors, have escaped with their lives, but the scars of Raccoon City will forever remain etched upon their souls. Their survival marks a crucial turning point, as they now carry the burden of exposing Umbrella's crimes to the world, ensuring that such a tragedy can never happen again. As the ashes of Raccoon City were still settling in late September 1998, the terrifying events of the T-virus outbreak had already scattered many of its survivors. For Claire Redfield, the harrowing escape from the city was only the beginning of another desperate search. By December 1998, just a few months after her Raccoon City ordeal, Claire was driven by a single, unwavering goal: finding her brother, Chris. Her quest led her across continents, eventually bringing her to a clandestine Umbrella facility nestled discreetly within the bustling metropolis of Paris. Claire, ever resourceful and determined, managed to infiltrate the heavily guarded complex, believing Chris might be held or working there. The infiltration quickly escalated into a chaotic firefight, a testament to Claire's growing combat prowess honed by her recent experiences. Despite her best efforts and a valiant stand against Umbrella's private security forces, the sheer numbers eventually overwhelmed her. She was captured, apprehended by Umbrella operatives who, recognizing her connection to Chris and her involvement in Raccoon City, deemed her a high-value detainee. Following her capture, Claire was not simply imprisoned locally. Instead, she was subjected to a forced relocation, transported by Umbrella to one of their most remote and secure holding facilities, Rockford Island. This desolate, windswept island, far from any mainland, served as a private prison and research outpost, a grim testament to the Ashford family's extensive and often sinister influence. The Ashford family, one of Umbrella's 3 founding families alongside the Spencer and Marcus lineages, held significant sway over this isolated dominion. Their legacy was deeply intertwined with Umbrella's origins and its most dangerous biological experiments. Claire's arrival on Rockford Island was anything but peaceful. Almost immediately after her incarceration, the island was plunged into chaos by a sudden and brutal attack. A mysterious organization, whose motives and identity were initially unclear, launched a devastating assault on the facility. This coordinated strike, designed to cripple Umbrella's operations on the island, inadvertently unleashed a T-virus outbreak. The highly contagious mutagen, a cornerstone of Umbrella's bioweaponry, rapidly spread among the prison's inhabitants and guards, transforming them into grotesque, flesh-eating zombies and other horrifying bioorganic weapons, or BOWs. The island, once a secure stronghold, quickly devolved into a nightmarish landscape of death and infection. Amidst this unfolding catastrophe, Claire found herself once again fighting for survival. It was during this ordeal that she encountered Steve Burnside, another prisoner held captive on Rockford Island. Steve, a young, brash, and somewhat impulsive individual, was imprisoned for his father's involvement in leaking Umbrella's secrets. Initially, their alliance was born out of necessity, an uneasy partnership forged in the crucible of a shared nightmare. Steve, though often reckless, possessed a surprising resilience and a desperate desire for freedom, mirroring Claire's own determination. Together, they navigated the zombie-infested corridors and treacherous grounds of Rockford Island, their combined skills proving vital for their continued survival. As Claire and Steve delved deeper into the island's secrets in their quest for escape, they began to uncover the truth about its enigmatic commander, Alfred Ashford. Alfred was the last direct descendant of the Ashford family, a lineage once revered for its scientific brilliance but now largely defined by its eccentricities and dark secrets. Alfred himself was a figure of unsettling instability, a man whose behavior oscillated between aristocratic arrogance and childish petulance. He commanded Rockford Island with an iron fist, yet his grip on reality seemed tenuous at best. Their investigations soon led Claire and Steve to unearth the disturbing history of the Ashford family and their profound involvement with Umbrella Corporation. They discovered the family's pivotal role in the very genesis of Umbrella, tracing their contributions back to the company's earliest days. More ominously, they learned about the Ashford family's most infamous creation, the Veronica virus. This advanced viral strain, far more potent and insidious than the original T-virus, represented a terrifying leap in bioweapon development, capable of granting incredible powers at the cost of immense biological degradation and psychological trauma. The Veronica virus was a dark jewel in Umbrella's crown, a testament to the Ashfords' ambition and their willingness to push the boundaries of ethical science. As Claire and Steve continued to evade Alfred's increasingly erratic pursuit, the extent of his psychological unraveling became horrifyingly clear. Alfred Ashford, tormented by his family's past and his own deep-seated insecurities, harbored a profound secret, a severe split personality. He frequently adopted the persona of his deceased twin sister, Alexia Ashford, a brilliant but equally disturbed scientist who had been considered a prodigy and the true genius of the Ashford line. Alfred would dress in Alexia's clothes, mimic her voice, and speak of her as if she were still alive and present, a macabre charade that underscored his profound mental fragility. This delusion was not merely a coping mechanism, it was a deep-seated psychological break, a manifestation of his inability to reconcile with the loss of his sister and his own perceived inadequacy in comparison to her genius. He truly believed he was Alexia at times, a chilling display of a mind fractured by trauma and isolation. Eventually, through a combination of ingenuity and sheer luck, Claire and Steve managed to secure a cargo plane, their ticket off the Nightmare Island. However, their hopes for freedom were short-lived. Alfred, in a final act of vengeful spite and demonstrating his continued control over Umbrella's assets, remotely diverted the cargo plane's flight path. Instead of heading to safety, the aircraft was rerouted to Umbrella's desolate Antarctic base, a frozen research facility hidden beneath miles of ice. This strategic move by Alfred was not random. The Antarctic base held another dark secret of the Ashford family, a place of profound significance to Alexia and the Veronica virus. Meanwhile, back in the world, Chris Redfield, still reeling from the events of Raccoon City and the disappearance of his sister, received a crucial piece of intelligence. Leon S. Kennedy, a fellow Raccoon City survivor and now an operative for the US government, had managed to intercept a message or gather information indicating Claire's capture and her subsequent transport to Rockford Island. Driven by an unyielding fraternal bond, Chris immediately set off on a perilous journey to rescue his sister, completely unaware of the horrors that awaited him. His path was one of desperate urgency, a race against time to save the only family he had left. Upon his arrival at the ravaged Rockford Island, Chris Redfield was confronted with a shocking revelation that would forever alter the landscape of his personal war against Umbrella. He encountered Albert Wesker, the former STARS captain believed to have perished during the Mansion incident in 1998. Wesker, however, was not only alive but transformed. He revealed his survival, explaining how he had orchestrated his own death and injected himself with a prototype virus, granting him superhuman abilities, incredible speed, strength, and regenerative capabilities. Wesker, now a shadowy operative working for a rival organization and pursuing his own sinister agenda, was not on Rockford Island by chance. He was there for the Veronica virus, a bioweapon of immense power that he believed held the key to his ultimate goals of global domination and evolutionary transcendence. His confrontation with Chris was brief but impactful, a chilling demonstration of his new powers and a clear warning of the formidable threat he now posed. Wesker, with his cold demeanor and enhanced abilities, had become an entirely new kind of villain, a force of nature driven by an insatiable lust for power and control. He was no longer merely a high-ranking Umbrella researcher. He was a super-powered individual with his own dark empire to build. Following Wesker's trail and driven by the urgent need to find Claire, Chris eventually made his way to the desolate Antarctic base. The frozen facility, a stark contrast to the tropical Rockford Island, harbored the ultimate horror of the Ashford family. It was here that Chris finally confronted Alexia Ashford, the true genius behind the Veronica virus, who had been in cryogenic stasis for years, allowing the virus to fully integrate with her biology. Alexia, now awakened and fully mutated by the Veronica virus, was a terrifying spectacle. Her transformation had bestowed upon her incredible, almost godlike powers, including pyrokinesis and the ability to manipulate her own body into various grotesque forms. She was a living bioweapon, a testament to the virus's horrifying potential. Her appearance was a grotesque fusion of human and plant-like characteristics, with tentacles and strange growths emanating from her body, a true biological abomination. Her mind, while brilliant, was warped by the virus and years of isolation, making her incredibly dangerous and utterly ruthless. The battle against Alexia Ashford was one of Chris's most challenging and brutal encounters. Her powers seemed limitless, her attacks relentless. Chris, pushed to his absolute limits, eventually managed to defeat the monstrous Alexia, bringing an end to the Ashford family's reign of terror and the immediate threat of the Veronica virus. However, the victory was bittersweet. In the chaos of the Antarctic base's destruction, Albert Wesker, ever the opportunist, managed to escape with a precious sample of the Veronica virus. His parting taunt to Chris hinted at his future plans, making it clear that this was not the last they would see of each other. Wesker's acquisition of the Veronica virus was a critical development, setting the stage for future conflicts and demonstrating his relentless pursuit of powerful bioweapons to further his own twisted agenda. The virus, now in his hands, became a dangerous tool, a piece in his grand scheme for global biological supremacy. The events of Code, Veronica not only reunited the Redfield siblings, but also firmly established Wesker as a primary antagonist, a superpowered threat whose ambitions would continue to plague the world. Moving forward 2 years from the events of Rockford Island, we arrive at 2002, and the focus shifts dramatically to South America. Here, a new critical chapter unfolds, one that will sow the seeds of future conflict and corruption within the ranks of those fighting Umbrella. This is the story of Operation Javier, as chronicled in Resident Evil, The Dark Side Chronicles, an entry that offers a unique perspective on a pivotal moment in the lives of two key characters. In 2002, the United States government, still reeling from the Raccoon City incident and the subsequent global bioterror threat, dispatched 2 of its most capable agents to the remote jungles of South America. These agents were none other than Leon S. Kennedy, a survivor of the Raccoon City outbreak and now a highly trained operative, and Jack Krauser, a seasoned Special Operations Forces veteran. Their mission was clear and dangerous: apprehend Javier Hidalgo, a notorious drug lord operating deep within the region who is suspected of having ties to Umbrella Corporation, and, more alarmingly, of developing his own bioweapons. The intelligence suggested Javier was not just a criminal, but a potential bioterrorist, leveraging Umbrella's dark legacy for his own nefarious purposes. The fear was that Javier, with his vast resources and isolated stronghold, could become another Raccoon City waiting to happen, or worse, a source of bioweapons for other rogue states or terrorist organizations. Upon their arrival in the treacherous South American wilderness, Leon and Krauser immediately encountered resistance. The jungle itself seemed alive with danger, but it was the unnatural, grotesque creatures lurking within that truly signaled the gravity of their mission. These weren't mere animals, they were bioorganic weapons, or BOWs, the terrifying result of viral experimentation. The duo fought their way through swarms of mutated insects, aggressive plant-based monsters, and even more familiar, yet still horrifying, zombies. Each encounter served as a grim confirmation. Javier Hidalgo was indeed deeply involved with Umbrella's illicit research. The sheer variety and lethality of the BOWs indicated a sophisticated, well-funded operation far beyond what a typical drug cartel could manage on its own. It became clear that Javier wasn't just acquiring bioweapons, he was actively creating and deploying them, transforming his territory into a living, breathing biological fortress. The agents also discovered remnants of research facilities and laboratories scattered throughout Javier's compound, littered with Umbrella Corporation logos and documentation, leaving no doubt as to the origin of the terrifying technology. As Leon and Krauser delved deeper into Javier's heavily fortified compound, a disturbing truth began to emerge. The drug lord's obsession with bioweapons wasn't solely for power or profit. It was fueled by a desperate personal motive. They uncovered evidence through intercepted communications and data logs that Javier had been experimenting with the Veronica virus. This highly virulent and mutagenic pathogen, first encountered during the events of Resident Evil Code, Veronica, was known for its rapid cellular regeneration and extreme transformative properties, often leading to grotesque mutations and a form of immortality, albeit at a terrible cost to the host's humanity. Javier's motivation for dabbling with such a dangerous virus was heartbreakingly revealed. He was attempting to save his daughter. His beloved child, Manuela Hidalgo, was suffering from an incurable degenerative disease, and Javier, in his grief and desperation, had turned to the Veronica virus as a last, desperate hope for a cure. He believed that the virus's regenerative powers could heal her, even if it meant transforming her into something else entirely. This revelation painted Javier not just as a villain, but as a tragic figure driven by paternal love, albeit one who had crossed a terrifying ethical line. The agents soon came face to face with the tragic outcome of Javier's desperate experiments. Manuela Hidalgo, Javier's daughter, was indeed infected with the Veronica virus. She was not the healthy child her father had hoped for, but a living testament to the virus's destructive power. Manuela was slowly, inexorably transforming. While she retained much of her human appearance, there were undeniable signs of the virus's progression. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, and she exhibited unusual physical abilities, including enhanced strength and the ability to manipulate her own blood, which, when exposed to air, could ignite into a fiery substance. She was a walking paradox, a fragile human shell housing a monstrous, evolving power. Her condition was a stark reminder of the Veronica virus's insidious nature, offering a false promise of life while slowly consuming the host from within. Manuela's presence added a layer of profound tragedy to the mission, forcing Leon and Krauser to confront not just a bioweapon threat, but also a deeply personal human drama. During one particularly intense confrontation within Javier's compound, as they pushed further into the heart of his operation, Krauser was severely injured. A grotesque, mutated creature, a product of Javier's twisted experiments, ambushed the duo, catching Krauser off guard. The creature's attack was brutal and swift, tearing into Krauser's left arm, inflicting a grievous wound that would prove to be a turning point for him. The injury was not just physical, it was a psychological blow to a soldier who prided himself on his strength and combat prowess. The wound was deep, rendering his arm almost useless, and despite Leon's efforts to provide immediate medical attention, it was clear that this was a permanent injury, one that would forever alter Krauser's career and his perception of himself. This physical vulnerability, for a man who had always relied on his physical capabilities, began to chip away at his mental fortitude, planting seeds of doubt and resentment. As Leon and Krauser finally cornered Javier, the drug lord made a desperate, final stand. Driven by an all-consuming desire to protect his transforming daughter and fueled by a twisted sense of paternal love, Javier injected himself with a concentrated dose of the Veronica virus. The transformation was immediate and horrifying. Javier mutated into a monstrous VOW, a colossal, plant-like creature with immense strength and destructive capabilities. Its body intertwined with the very floor of the jungle, becoming a living, breathing, and incredibly dangerous ecosystem. His human form was utterly consumed, replaced by a grotesque embodiment of the virus's power. This final desperate act was Javier's ultimate sacrifice, a futile attempt to shield Manuela from the perceived threats, including Leon and Krauser themselves. He became a living fortress, a testament to the destructive power of love twisted by desperation and bioorganic weaponry. The battle against the mutated Javier was arduous and brutal, pushing Leon and Krauser to their absolute limits. They fought with everything they had, utilizing their combined skills and every available resource to take down the colossal BOW. Eventually, after a prolonged and devastating struggle, they succeeded in defeating the monstrous Javier, bringing an end to his reign of terror and his twisted experiments. However, the victory came at a significant cost, particularly for Krauser. The physical and psychological toll of the mission, especially his debilitating injury, began to manifest in a profound and disturbing way. The power of the Veronica virus, witnessed firsthand in Manuela and Javier, and the sheer destructive force of the BOWs they had faced, had a corrupting influence on Krauser's mind. He began to question the limits of human strength and the perceived weakness of conventional warfare against such overwhelming biological threats. In the aftermath of Operation Javier, as they navigated their way out of the jungle with the now rescued, though still infected, Manuela, a deep-seated resentment began to fester within Krauser. He developed a profound grudge against Leon. Krauser, a man who valued strength and power above all else, started to view Leon's reliance on traditional combat and his unwavering moral compass as a weakness. He saw Leon's refusal to embrace the dark power of the virus, to exploit its potential for enhanced strength and survival, as a failure to adapt, a sign of being held back by antiquated notions of humanity. Krauser, having witnessed the raw, untamed power of the Veronica virus, began to believe that true strength lay in embracing such biological enhancements, even at the cost of one's humanity. This ideological rift, born from the trauma of Operation Javier and Krauser's personal injury, would ultimately set him on a dark path, leading him to seek out and embrace the very power they had fought against, transforming him into a formidable and dangerous adversary in the future. The events in South America, therefore, were not merely a successful mission. They were the crucible in which a future villain was forged, a testament to the insidious, corrupting influence of Umbrella's legacy. 4 years after the harrowing events of Operation Javier, as the calendar turned to the autumn of 2004, the world found itself grappling with a new, insidious threat. Our focus now shifts to Leon S. Kennedy, a man whose life had been irrevocably altered by the Raccoon City incident. Having proven his mettle and resilience, Leon was now a highly trained government agent, entrusted with missions of paramount importance. His latest assignment, however, would plunge him into a nightmare far removed from the viral outbreaks he had previously confronted. Leon was dispatched to a remote, secluded village nestled deep within the rugged, foreboding landscapes of rural Spain. His mission was clear, yet fraught with peril: locate and rescue Ashley Graham, the innocent daughter of the President of the United States who had been brazenly abducted by an unknown shadowy organization. The circumstances surrounding her disappearance were murky, hinting at a conspiracy far larger than a simple kidnapping. As Leon's government-issued vehicle, accompanied by 2 Spanish police officers acting as his local escort, traversed the winding, desolate roads leading to the isolated community, an unsettling silence hung heavy in the air. The landscape itself seemed to exude an aura of foreboding, a stark contrast to the familiar urban environments Leon was accustomed to. Upon their arrival at the village's periphery, the escort officers, seemingly oblivious to the lurking danger, ventured ahead to investigate a dilapidated farmhouse. Their brief, garbled radio transmissions quickly dissolved into static, followed by the chilling sounds of struggle, and then an unnerving silence. Leon, a veteran of countless close calls, immediately recognized the grim implications. He cautiously approached the farmhouse, only to discover a scene of brutal carnage. His escort officers had been savagely murdered, their bodies grotesquely disfigured, bearing the hallmarks of a violent, non-human assailant. This sudden, brutal ambush left Leon stranded, isolated in a hostile, unfamiliar territory with his primary objective still tantalizingly out of reach. The communication lines were down, and the remote location meant no immediate backup was forthcoming. He was truly alone, a lone wolf in a den of unknown predators. As Leon pressed deeper into the village, the true nature of the threat began to reveal itself. He encountered the villagers not as the innocent, unsuspecting populace he might have expected, but as grotesque, mutated beings, their eyes glowing with an unnatural, malevolent light. These were the Los Ganados, a term that translates from Spanish to the cattle, a chillingly accurate description of their subservient, controlled state. They were not the mindless, shambling zombies of previous outbreaks. The Los Ganados exhibited a disturbing degree of intelligence, capable of wielding crude weapons, setting traps, and even communicating in guttural, distorted Spanish. Their movements were surprisingly agile, their attacks relentless and coordinated. Leon quickly discerned that these were not viral infections, but something entirely different, something far more insidious. The source of their affliction, he soon discovered, was a newly unearthed biological weapon, the Las Plagas parasite. This ancient parasitic organism, long dormant beneath the earth, had been rediscovered and weaponized by a fanatical cult known as the Los Illuminados. Unlike viruses, which primarily hijack and destroy cellular functions, the Las Plagas directly integrated with the host's nervous system, effectively turning them into puppets. The parasite could manifest in various terrifying forms, from small, insect-like creatures bursting from the host's neck to larger, more resilient forms that granted enhanced strength and durability. This direct neural control explained the Ganados' coordinated attacks and their disturbing ability to utilize tools and tactics. They were not undead, but rather living beings whose free will had been completely subjugated by the parasite. Leon's investigation led him to a confrontation with Torres Mendez, the imposing and physically formidable village chief. Mendez, a towering figure with an unnerving presence, was not merely a Ganado, but a powerful host for a dominant strain of the Las Plagas. After a brutal struggle, Leon was overwhelmed and captured. In a chilling display of the cult's insidious methods, Mendez forcibly injected Leon with a Plaga's egg. This act was not meant to immediately transform Leon into a Ganado, but rather to ensure his eventual subservience, a ticking time bomb within his own body. The cult's plan was to use Leon, or at least his unique genetic makeup, for some unknown nefarious purpose, possibly to further propagate the Plagas or to test its effects on a highly trained individual. The injection marked a critical turning point, as Leon now had a personal stake in eradicating the parasite, not just for Ashley, but for his own survival. During his harrowing ordeal, Leon found an unlikely ally in Sera. Luis was a mysterious, enigmatic figure, initially appearing as a captive himself, but quickly revealing a deeper, more complex role. He was a former researcher for the now-defunct Umbrella Corporation, a man intimately familiar with the dark underbelly of bioorganic weapon development. However, Luis was not working for the Los Illuminados. He was, in fact, a double agent, secretly attempting to acquire a sample of the dominant Plaga strain for his own purposes, or more accurately, for a third party whose identity remained shrouded in secrecy. Luis provided Leon with crucial information about the Plagas, its life cycle and its weaknesses, becoming an invaluable, albeit reluctant guide through the labyrinthine cult compound. His knowledge proved instrumental in understanding the true scope of the threat Leon faced. As Leon delved deeper into the cult's operations, he finally came face to face with the orchestrator of this nightmare, Osman Sadler. Sadler was the charismatic, yet utterly ruthless leader of the Los Illuminados cult. He was not merely a religious fanatic, he was a brilliant, albeit twisted scientist who had meticulously planned the resurrection and weaponization of the Las Plagas. His ultimate goal was global domination, not through conventional warfare, but by subtly controlling the world's leaders through the Plagas, effectively creating a global network of puppets dancing to his tune. He saw the Plagas as a tool for salvation, a means to cleanse the world of its perceived impurities and establish a new, obedient order under his divine guidance. The cult's grip on Ashley was tenuous, and during a brief window of opportunity, Leon managed to locate and rescue her. However, their respite was short-lived. The Los Illuminados, with their vast network of ganados and fanatical devotion, quickly recaptured Ashley. This time, she was taken to a far more secure, heavily fortified location, the ancient Gothic castle belonging to Ramon Salazar. Salazar, a diminutive but incredibly sadistic nobleman, was a direct descendant of the castle's original owners and a high-ranking member of the Los Illuminados. His castle, a sprawling complex of traps, puzzles, and heavily armed ganados, presented a new, formidable challenge for Leon. Salazar's personal fascination with gruesome torture and his unwavering loyalty to Sadler made him a particularly dangerous adversary. It was within the confines of Salazar's castle that Leon encountered a familiar yet unwelcome face, Ada Wong. Ada, the enigmatic spy who had played a pivotal, morally ambiguous role in the Raccoon City incident, reappeared under mysterious circumstances. Her motivations, as always, were shrouded in secrecy, but Leon quickly deduced she was not working for the Los Illuminados. Ada was in fact operating under the direct orders of Albert Wesker, the former head of Umbrella's R&D division and now a master manipulator pulling strings from the shadows. Wesker's objective was to acquire a sample of the dominant Las Plagas strain for his own nefarious research, aiming to incorporate its unique properties into his ongoing pursuit of ultimate power. Ada's presence added another layer of complexity to an already intricate web of deception and betrayal, forcing Leon to constantly question whom he could truly trust. Despite their combined efforts, Leon and Ashley were once again separated. The cult's relentless pursuit and overwhelming numbers proved too much, and Ashley was whisked away to Sadler's heavily fortified island compound. This final stronghold, a sprawling complex of laboratories, military installations, and ancient ruins, was where Sadler intended to complete his grand scheme. The island was a veritable fortress, designed to be impenetrable, and it represented the final, most dangerous hurdle for Leon. The stakes had never been higher. Not only was Ashley's life in immediate danger, but the fate of the Plagas sample, and potentially the world, hung in the balance. As Leon fought his way through the island compound, he was confronted by a ghost from his past, Jack Krauser. Krauser, a former comrade in arms from Leon's Special Forces days, a man Leon had believed to be dead, was now a formidable enemy. Krauser, a highly skilled soldier and master of close-quarters combat, had undergone a dramatic transformation. He was now working directly for Sadler and, by extension, Wesker, driven by a thirst for power and a deep-seated resentment towards his former life. Krauser had been infected with a special, more potent strain of the Plagas, granting him superhuman strength and the ability to transform his arm into a monstrous blade-like appendage. Their confrontation was a deeply personal one, a clash of ideologies and a tragic testament to the corrupting influence of power and desperation. Leon, forced to confront a man he once respected, ultimately defeated Krauser in a brutal, no-holds-barred battle, a victory that came with a heavy emotional cost. With Krauser defeated and Ashley finally within reach, Leon's immediate priority shifted to the insidious threat growing within their own bodies. Both Leon and Ashley were still infected with the Plagas parasites, a ticking time bomb that could turn them into subservient ganados at any moment. With the aid of Luis Sera's research notes and Ada's unexpected assistance, Leon discovered a radical, yet potentially life-saving procedure. This involved using a specialized radiation device, originally developed by the Los Illuminados for controlling the Plagas, to instead destroy the parasites within their bodies. The procedure was excruciating, a searing pain as the parasites were violently expelled, but it was successful. Leon and Ashley were finally free from the parasitic grip, their minds and bodies their own once more. This removal was a crucial step, allowing them to face Sadler without the fear of succumbing to his control. Their final confrontation with Osman Sadler was inevitable. Stripped of his human facade, Sadler revealed his true, monstrous form, a grotesque amalgamation of flesh and Plagas, far larger and more terrifying than any creature Leon had faced before. This transformation was the ultimate expression of the Plagas' destructive power, turning its host into a biological weapon of immense destructive capability. The battle was epic, a desperate struggle against a being of immense power, but Leon, utilizing his combat skills, quick thinking, and the unexpected assistance of Ada Wong, managed to exploit Sadler's weaknesses. Ada, true to her ambiguous nature, provided a crucial rocket launcher, a weapon of immense power that finally brought down the monstrous cult leader. Sadler's defeat signaled the end of the Los Illuminados' reign of terror. With Sadler vanquished and the Plaga's threat seemingly contained, Leon and Ashley made their daring escape from the collapsing island compound. The island, now a smoldering ruin, was a testament to the destructive power of the Plagas and the lengths to which humanity would go in pursuit of power. Their escape was narrow, a race against time as the island disintegrated around them. As they flew away in a jet ski, leaving the inferno behind, the immediate danger was over. The Las Plagas, a horrifying new chapter in the history of bioorganic weapons, had been successfully neutralized, at least for now. Leon had not only rescued the president's daughter, but had also prevented a global catastrophe, once again proving his unwavering dedication to protecting the innocent and combating the insidious forces that sought to weaponize biological horrors. The events in Spain left an indelible mark on Leon, a constant reminder of the ever-evolving nature of biological threats and the enduring struggle against those who would exploit them. The world, unknowingly, had narrowly averted a new form of biological enslavement thanks to the relentless efforts of one man. Moving into 2005, we encounter a pivotal moment in the fight against bioterrorism, one that reshaped global security organizations and exposed deep-seated corruption, the events of Resident Evil Revelations. This story, though primarily set in 2005, has its roots firmly planted in the preceding year, 2004, with the ambitious vision of the Federal Bioterrorism Commission, or FBC, and its enigmatic director, Morgan Lansdale. Lansdale, a man driven by a desire for control and a belief in technological supremacy, spearheaded the development of Terra Grigia, a colossal floating city designed as a shining beacon of human ingenuity and a testament to the FBC's power. Imagine a metropolis, self-sustaining and technologically advanced, hovering above the Mediterranean Sea, a symbol of humanity's triumph over nature and, implicitly, over the very biothreats the FBC was created to combat. It was a grand statement, but one built on a foundation of hubris and, as we will soon discover, deceit. However, this grand vision was not without its detractors. Emerging in 2004 was Veltro, a bioterrorist organization led by the charismatic and deeply ideological Jack Norman. Veltro was vehemently opposed to the FBC's perceived overreach, its growing influence, and its increasingly authoritarian control over global security matters. They saw Terra Grigia not as a symbol of progress, but as an emblem of the FBC's unchecked power, a monument to their hubris. Norman and his followers believed the FBC was becoming a tyrannical entity, manipulating events for its own gain rather than genuinely protecting the world. This ideological clash would soon erupt into a devastating conflict. In 2004, Veltro launched a bold and horrific bioterrorist attack on Terra Grigia. Their weapon of choice was bioorganic weapons, or BOWs, infected with a terrifying new pathogen, the T-Abyss virus. Unlike previous T-virus strains, T-Abyss was aquatic, capable of infecting marine life and spreading rapidly through water, making it a particularly insidious threat to a floating city. The attack plunged Terra Grigia into chaos, transforming its pristine streets into a nightmare of grotesque mutations and desperate survivors. The FBC, initially caught off guard, struggled to contain the rapidly escalating outbreak. The sheer scale of the attack and the horrifying effectiveness of the T-Abyss virus quickly overwhelmed their defenses. This was not just an act of terrorism, it was a declaration of war against the FBC's very ideology. What followed was a shocking act of desperation and calculated ruthlessness by Morgan Lansdale. To contain the T-Abyss outbreak, and more importantly, to cover up his own potential involvement in the events leading to the attack and the FBC's shortcomings, Lansdale made a chilling decision. He ordered the FBC to deploy the Regia Solis satellite, a powerful orbital weapon system, to incinerate Terra Grigia. The Regia Solis unleashed a devastating energy beam, engulfing the entire floating city in a fiery inferno. This drastic measure, while ostensibly containing the T-Abyss, wiped out countless lives, both infected and uninfected, and obliterated all evidence of the FBC's failures, leaving behind a smoldering ruin. The destruction of Terra Grigia in 2004 was a cataclysmic event, a stark reminder of the devastating potential of bioterrorism and the moral compromises made in its wake. This tragedy, however, also served as a catalyst. The global outcry and the undeniable need for a more unified and independent approach to bioterrorism led directly to the official formation of the Bioterrorism Security Assessment Alliance, or BSAA, in 2005. The BSAA was envisioned as an international organization, free from political influence, dedicated solely to combating biothreats worldwide. Fast forward to 2005. The BSAA is now operational, and two of its most experienced agents, Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine, find themselves embroiled in a new mystery. Reports suggest a resurgence of the bioterrorist organization Veltro, believed to be planning another large-scale attack. The specter of Terra Grigia still loomed large, and the BSAA was determined to prevent a repeat of that catastrophe. Their investigation leads them down separate yet ultimately interconnected paths. Jill Valentine, partnered with the seasoned FBC agent Parker Luciani, embarks on a mission to the Mediterranean Sea. Their intelligence suggests that Chris Redfield has gone missing, believed to be held captive aboard a derelict vessel known as the Queen Zenobia, a ghost ship with a sinister reputation. The Queen Zenobia was a luxury cruise liner, now adrift and silent, an ominous presence on the open water. Jill and Parker, driven by a sense of urgency and concern for their comrade, board the vessel, unaware of the horrors that awaited them. As they delve deeper into the ship's labyrinthine corridors, the chilling reality of the Queen Zenobia is revealed. It is not just an abandoned ship, it is a floating biological hazard. The vessel is infested with BOWs, grotesque creatures born from the T-Abyss virus. The aquatic nature of the virus meant that the ship's water systems, its very structure, had become a breeding ground for these abominations. Jill and Parker quickly find themselves trapped, fighting for survival against an onslaught of mutated horrors, their mission to rescue Chris turning into a desperate struggle to escape the ship alive. The Queen Zenobia became a microcosm of Terra Grigia's fate, a testament to the T-Abyss virus's terrifying potential. Meanwhile, Chris Redfield, partnered with the enigmatic FBC agent Jessica Sherwatt, was pursuing a different lead. Their investigation took them to a desolate Veltro airbase nestled deep within the mountains. Here, they uncovered disturbing evidence. Not only was Veltro active, but they were also developing a new, more virulent strain of the T-Abyss virus. This discovery raised alarm bells, suggesting Veltro's capabilities were far more advanced than initially believed, and that a new, potentially even more devastating attack was imminent. The stakes were rapidly escalating. As the separate investigations of Jill and Chris progressed, a disturbing truth began to emerge, slowly unraveling a complex web of deception and betrayal. Jill and Chris, through their independent findings and eventual reunion, began to piece together fragments of a larger conspiracy. They discovered that two of their apparent allies, Raymond Vester, another FBC agent, and Jessica Sherwatt, Chris's partner, were secretly working for Morgan Lansdale. Their role was to manipulate the BSAA, feeding them misinformation and steering their investigations in predetermined directions. The revelation was a gut punch, a betrayal from within the very organizations tasked with protecting humanity. The deeper they dug, the more horrifying the truth became. Jill and Chris ultimately uncovered the full extent of Morgan Lansdale's machinations. Lansdale had not only orchestrated the Terra Grigia incident, allowing the Veltro attack to unfold to showcase the FBC's necessity and power, but he had also meticulously planned the Queen Zenobia trap. His ultimate goal was to discredit the newly formed BSAA, to prove its inadequacy, and thereby increase the FBC's power and influence on the global stage. He viewed the BSAA as a threat to his authority, an independent entity that he could not fully control. By manufacturing these crises, he sought to consolidate power, positioning the FBC as the sole, indispensable force against bioterrorism. The heroes realized they were pawns in a much larger, far more sinister game. The climax of this convoluted plot saw Jill Valentine and Chris Redfield confront Jack Norman, the leader of Veltro, on the Queen Zenobia. Norman, cornered and facing imminent capture, made a final, desperate act of defiance. In a shocking display of his unwavering commitment to his cause and his disdain for the FBC, he injected himself with the T-Abyss virus. This self-inflicted infection transformed him into a monstrous beau, a living embodiment of the very biothreat he had unleashed. The ensuing battle was fierce, a desperate struggle against a powerful and grotesque foe, but ultimately, Norman was defeated. With Norman's defeat and the overwhelming evidence gathered by Jill and Chris, the truth could no longer be suppressed. The Federal Bioterrorism Commission and its corrupt leader Morgan Lansdale were exposed for their central role in orchestrating the Terra Grigia outbreak and the subsequent elaborate cover-up. The sheer scale of his deception, the deliberate sacrifice of countless lives, and his cynical manipulation of global security for personal gain sent shockwaves through the international community. The revelations led to Lansdale's immediate arrest and the dismantling of the FBC, its power stripped away and its reputation in tatters. The events of Resident Evil. Revelations served as a stark warning. The greatest threats sometimes come not from external enemies, but from within, from those entrusted with power who betray that trust for their own selfish ambitions. This saga underscored the importance of vigilance, not just against bioweapons, but against the corruption that can fester within the very institutions designed to protect us. Moving forward a few years from the Queen Zenobia incident, we arrive in 2009, a pivotal year marked by the Kijuju incident, the central event of Resident Evil 5. By this point, the global landscape of bioterrorism had evolved significantly, with various organizations and individuals vying for control of bioweapons and their lucrative markets. The BSAA, or Bioterrorism Security Assessment Alliance, a multinational organization formed in the wake of the Raccoon City incident, was now at the forefront of combating these threats. It is into this volatile environment that we find Chris Redfield, a seasoned veteran of the Raccoon City incident and a founding member of the BSAA, deployed to the fictional West African nation of Kijuju. His mission: to investigate a new and alarming biological weapon threat that had begun to destabilize the region. Chris arrived in Kijuju with a clear objective, but little did he know the intricate web of deception and long-standing vendettas he was about to unravel. Upon his arrival, he was partnered with Sheva Alamar, a local BSAA agent with an intimate knowledge of the region and a personal history deeply intertwined with the consequences of bioweapon proliferation. Sheva, a capable and determined operative, brought a vital perspective to the mission, having witnessed firsthand the devastating impact of corporate greed and viral outbreaks on her community. Their initial foray into the Kijuju Autonomous Zone, a seemingly ordinary African village, quickly turned into a nightmarish encounter. They bore witness to the horrifying transformation of a local inhabitant, a seemingly ordinary person, into a Magini. This was a new and terrifying type of Plaga infected, a grotesque mutation of the parasitic organisms first encountered in Resident Evil 4. Unlike the ganados of Spain, these Magini exhibited a more aggressive and coordinated behavior, their bodies twisted into monstrous forms, their minds entirely subservient to a controlling intelligence. The sheer brutality and speed of this transformation served as a stark reminder of the escalating biological threats facing the world. As Chris and Shiva delved deeper into the heart of Kijuju, they began to uncover the disturbing truth behind these new creatures. Their investigations confirmed the presence of a new Plagas variant, a more advanced and adaptable strain than its predecessors. This variant, they soon learned, was not a natural occurrence but the product of deliberate manipulation and experimentation. The trail of evidence led them to Tricell, a seemingly legitimate pharmaceutical company with a dark secret. Tricell, a global conglomerate, was revealed to be deeply entrenched in the black market of bioweapons, leveraging its vast resources and scientific expertise to develop and distribute these devastating agents for profit. This discovery sent a chill down Chris's spine, as it revealed the terrifying reality that the enemy was not just a rogue scientist or a terrorist cell, but a powerful, seemingly legitimate corporation operating with impunity. Their pursuit of the truth brought them face to face with Ricardo Irving, a high-ranking Tricell executive who epitomized the company's ruthless ambition. Irving, a smarmy and opportunistic individual, was the orchestrator of the Bow and Plagas sales in the region, pulling the strings of the local bioterrorism network. He reveled in the chaos and suffering he inflicted, driven by a desire for power and wealth. Chris and Shiva's initial encounters with Irving were marked by his cunning evasiveness, as he consistently managed to slip through their grasp, leaving a trail of destruction in his wake. The chase for Irving led Chris and Shiva through the treacherous marshlands of Kijuju, a sprawling and dangerous environment teeming with mutated wildlife and heavily armed Magini. The landscape itself seemed to conspire against them, with its dense vegetation, murky waters, and hidden dangers. The pursuit was relentless, a cat and mouse game across a hostile terrain. Finally, after a series of intense skirmishes and close calls, they cornered Irving. In a desperate and truly grotesque act of self-preservation, Irving injected himself with a massive, highly concentrated dose of the new Plaga variant. The transformation was swift and horrifying, turning him into a colossal aquatic monster, a grotesque amalgamation of flesh and parasite, its tentacles lashing out with deadly force. This monstrous form, a testament to the sheer destructive potential of the Plagas, became a formidable obstacle for Chris and Shiva. Their battle against the transformed Irving was a harrowing test of their combat skills and teamwork, culminating in a dramatic showdown that saw them narrowly defeat the monstrous executive. Following Irving's demise, Chris and Shiva discovered a hidden Tricell research facility, a clandestine laboratory buried deep within the Kijuju region. This facility was a hub of illicit bioweapon development, a chilling testament to Tricell's unethical practices. Within its sterile yet sinister confines, they uncovered the existence of the Uroboros Virus, a terrifying new bioweapon that represented the pinnacle of Tricell's, and more specifically, Albert Wesker's, research. Uroboros was a highly advanced viral agent designed to selectively infect and mutate individuals, transforming those deemed unworthy into grotesque, uncontrollable masses of biomass, while granting immense power to those with the highly specific genetic markers required for symbiosis. It was, in essence, a virus intended for a global culling, a means of reshaping humanity according to Wesker's twisted vision. It was within this facility that Chris made a shocking and deeply personal discovery. He found evidence that his former partner, Jill Valentine, a survivor of the original mansion incident and a close friend, was not only alive, but also under the direct control of Albert Wesker. For years, Chris had believed Jill to be dead, a casualty of a previous encounter with Wesker. The revelation that she was alive, and worse, being manipulated by his greatest enemy, reignited a burning sense of purpose within him. Jill had been subjected to a sophisticated form of mind control, facilitated by a device surgically implanted on her chest. This device, a complex piece of technology, emitted a continuous stream of P30, a powerful chemical compound that suppressed her free will and compelled her to obey Wesker's every command. The sight of his friend, a fierce and independent operative reduced to a puppet, fueled Chris's resolve to rescue her at any cost. Their confrontation with Wesker and the mind-controlled Jill Valentine took place in another Tricell laboratory, a sterile, high-tech environment that served as the stage for a deeply emotional and physically demanding battle. Wesker, now more powerful and arrogant than ever, reveled in his control over Jill, taunting Chris with her subjugation. The battle was a heartbreaking ordeal for Chris, as he was forced to fight against his former partner, knowing that her actions were not her own. Shiva, ever the loyal and capable ally, provided crucial support, helping Chris to navigate the emotional turmoil of the situation. Through a combination of strategic attacks and a desperate act of intervention, Chris and Shiva managed to damage the mind control device on Jill's chest, eventually freeing her from Wesker's insidious influence. The relief was palpable, but the scars of her ordeal would undoubtedly linger. With Jill free, the focus of their mission shifted entirely to stopping Wesker and his catastrophic plans. They pursued him to a massive oil tanker, a colossal vessel that served as his mobile base of operations and the intended launchpad for his Uroboros virus. Wesker's plan was simple yet terrifying: to unleash Uroboros upon the world, initiating a global pandemic that would reshape humanity in his image, a twisted form of natural selection where only the worthy would survive. The tanker was a labyrinthine structure filled with tricell mercenaries and mutated creatures, all standing between Chris and Sheva and their ultimate target. The final confrontation with Wesker aboard the tanker was an epic and brutal showdown. Wesker, having gained incredible superhuman abilities through years of experimentation with various viral agents, was a formidable opponent, moving with impossible speed and striking with devastating force. He was a living bioweapon, a testament to the dangers of unchecked scientific ambition. In a desperate attempt to gain an even greater advantage, Wesker injected himself with a massive dose of the Uroboros virus. Instead of transforming him into a grotesque monster like the Unworthy, the virus, recognizing his unique genetic makeup, integrated with his body, granting him even more immense power, transforming his arm into a monstrous tentacled appendage. This Uroboros-enhanced Wesker was a terrifying sight, a being of immense destructive potential. Chris and Sheva, though outmatched in raw power, fought with unwavering determination, leveraging their combat skills, teamwork, and knowledge of Wesker's weaknesses. They managed to inflict significant damage, ultimately forcing him to retreat, though not before he managed to escape in a jet. The pursuit continued, leading them to a volcanic region, a desolate and dangerous landscape where the very earth seemed to boil with rage. It was here, amidst the searing heat and volatile terrain, that the final decisive battle against Albert Wesker would take place. Wesker, still reeling from his injuries but fueled by a fanatical determination, made his last stand. The volcanic environment added another layer of peril to the already intense battle, with geysers of lava and unstable ground threatening to engulf them all. Chris and Sheva, pushed to their absolute limits, engaged Wesker in a desperate struggle, utilizing every ounce of their training and courage. In a climactic moment, they managed to corner the weakened Wesker near a pool of molten lava. With a final, coordinated effort, they pushed him into the inferno, the searing heat consuming his body and seemingly ending his reign of terror. However, even as he sank into the molten rock, Wesker's resilience was terrifying. As his escaping helicopter attempted to retrieve him, Chris and Sheva, refusing to leave anything to chance, used rocket launchers to destroy the helicopter, ensuring that Albert Wesker, the architect of so much suffering, was finally and unequivocally defeated, bringing an end to his global bioterrorism plans and a long personal vendetta for Chris Redfield. The Kijuju incident, though devastating, marked a significant victory against the forces of bioterrorism, but the fight, as we will soon see, was far from over. None. 6 years after the events of Resident Evil 5 and the apparent demise of Albert Wesker, the global landscape of bioterrorism continued its insidious spread. By 2011, the shadowy organization TerraSave, dedicated to combating bioorganic weapons, found itself directly in the crosshairs of a new, equally malevolent force. Our journey into this chilling chapter begins when Claire Redfield, a seasoned survivor and prominent figure within TerraSave, along with Moira Burton, the rebellious daughter of BSAA veteran Barry Burton and a new recruit to the organization, are abruptly abducted. Their captors, unseen and unknown, whisk them away to a mysterious isolated island prison, a place of forgotten horrors and unspeakable experiments. They awaken disoriented and confused, finding themselves within the decaying, decrepit confines of what was once a research facility on Sajam Island. The air is thick with the stench of rust and decay, a palpable sense of dread clinging to every shadow. A chilling detail quickly becomes apparent. Each of them wears a strange glowing wristband, a device not merely for identification but for something far more sinister. These wristbands, they soon discover, are actively monitoring their fear responses, glowing brighter and changing color with every surge of terror. This isn't just a prison, it's a meticulously designed psychological experiment, a twisted theater where their deepest anxieties are the main performance. As they navigate the labyrinthine corridors and dilapidated laboratories of Same Island, Claire and Moira encounter the island's grotesque inhabitants. The first are the Afflicted, once human, now grotesque, zombie-like creatures with exposed musculature and a feral, unreasoning aggression. They are victims of the Uroboros Virus, a bioorganic weapon developed by Umbrella and later refined by Tricell. But here on Same Island, it has taken on a new, more horrifying form. The revenant creatures present an even more disturbing sight, monstrous amalgamations of human body parts crudely stitched together, animated by a malevolent will. These abominations are not merely reanimated corpses, they are the result of advanced genetic manipulation, their fragmented consciousness driven by an unholy hunger. The true horror dawns on Claire and Moira. These creatures are not just obstacles to escape. They are the living, breathing, or rather unliving, testament to the island's dark purpose. Their desperate search for answers and an escape route leads them to other abducted TerraSave members. Among them are Pedro Fernandez, a nervous but resourceful mechanic, and Gabe Chavez, a pilot whose skills could be their ticket off the island. These individuals, equally bewildered and terrified, share their plight, forming a fragile alliance against the overwhelming odds. They pool their limited resources and knowledge, each bringing a unique skill set to the table, hoping to find a way to survive the island's horrors. The shared experience of abduction and the constant threat of the Afflicted and Revenants forge a bond between them, a desperate camaraderie born of mutual fear and the primal instinct to survive. It is through their collective experiences and the chilling messages broadcast over the facility's intercom system that they learn of the Overseer, a mysterious disembodied voice that taunts and manipulates them. The Overseer reveals herself to be the architect of their torment, orchestrating their every move and observing their fear responses with a chilling detachment. She speaks in riddles and philosophical pronouncements, hinting at a grander scheme, a scientific endeavor focused on understanding and harnessing the very essence of fear. The wristbands, they realize, are not just monitors. They are instruments of control, designed to push them to their psychological limits, to extract the purest, most potent forms of terror. The Overseer's voice, calm and calculating, becomes a constant presence, a psychological weapon more insidious than any bioorganic monster. 6 months later, the narrative shifts, introducing a new protagonist to the island's grim tableau. Barry Burton, driven by the unwavering love for his daughter, arrives on the desolate shores of Same Island. Having received a distress call from Moira, a message filled with desperation and fear, he embarks on a solo mission to find her, armed with his trusty magnum and an unshakable resolve. The island he encounters is even more desolate and overgrown than the one Claire and Moira faced, the passage of time having further ravaged its structures and allowed nature to reclaim its grip. Almost immediately upon his arrival, Barry encounters Natalia Corda, a young girl with an unnerving, almost supernatural ability. Natalia, a survivor of the Terra Grigia Panic, an event where a bioterrorist attack using the T-Abyss virus devastated a floating city, possesses the unique gift of sensing the presence of monsters, their auras visible to her even through walls and obstacles. This extraordinary ability, a residual effect of her exposure to the T-Abyss virus, proves invaluable to Barry, guiding him through the island's treacherous pathways and alerting him to unseen dangers. Natalia, though outwardly innocent, carries a profound psychological burden, the trauma of her past manifesting in her quiet demeanor and her unsettling connection to the island's horrors. Their unlikely partnership forms the emotional core of Barry's journey, a grizzled veteran protecting a vulnerable child while relying on her uncanny senses. As Barry and Natalia delve deeper into the island's secrets, they begin to uncover the true nature of the experiments being conducted there. The mastermind behind it all is revealed to be Alex Wesker, one of the 13 Wesker children, a group of genetically enhanced individuals created by Umbrella's founder, Oswell E. Spencer, in his pursuit of human evolution. Alex, often referred to as Albert Wesker's sister, due to their shared genetic lineage and similar intellectual prowess, has been conducting her own twisted research on Same Island, driven by an obsessive fear of death and a relentless pursuit of immortality. Her experiments are not merely about creating bioorganic weapons. They are about transcending the limitations of the human body, about achieving eternal life through consciousness transfer. Alex Wesker, a brilliant but utterly ruthless geneticist, reveals her chilling plan to transfer her consciousness into Natalia. She believes Natalia's unique abilities, her resilience, and her apparent lack of a fully developed personality make her a perfect host for her own consciousness. Alex theorizes that Natalia's exposure to the T-Abyss virus has somehow primed her for this transfer, making her an ideal vessel for her own twisted form of immortality. The Overseer's identity is thus revealed. It is Alex Wesker herself, manipulating and observing her test subjects, not just for scientific data, but to prepare for her ultimate goal of self-preservation. Meanwhile, Claire and Moira, through their own harrowing experiences and discoveries, piece together the true nature of the Uroboros virus variant being utilized on Same Island. This particular strain is not simply designed to create monsters, it is engineered to measure and amplify fear. The wristbands, they realize, are not just monitors. They are active agents in this process, stimulating the body's fear response and potentially accelerating the mutation process in those infected. The island itself is a vast living laboratory, and they, along with the other abducted TerraSave members, are nothing more than lab rats in Alex Wesker's macabre experiment to understand and control the very essence of human terror. The virus in this context is not just a biological weapon, it is a psychological one, designed to break the human spirit before it breaks the human body. In a climactic confrontation, Alex Wesker is seemingly defeated. Her grand plan to achieve immortality appears to be thwarted, her physical form destroyed in the ensuing chaos. However, the insidious nature of her experiments and her profound understanding of the Uroboros virus mean that her defeat is not as complete as it seems. Unbeknownst to her adversaries, a part of her consciousness, through a complex and horrifying process, manages to survive. Like a parasitic entity, it latches onto the most suitable host available. Natalia Corda, the innocent girl who had helped Barry navigate the island, becomes that unwitting host. The subtle influence of Alex Wesker's consciousness begins to manifest within Natalia, leading to a chilling shift in her personality. Her quiet demeanor takes on an unsettling edge, her innocent gaze replaced by moments of cold calculation. Small, almost imperceptible changes in her behavior, her speech patterns, and her expressions hint at the profound, sinister transformation occurring within her. The girl Barry had come to protect is subtly being overwritten, her identity slowly subsumed by the malevolent will of Alex Wesker. Finally, Barry and Natalia manage to escape the nightmare of Same Island. They are rescued, their ordeal seemingly over. Barry, relieved to have found Moira and to have saved Natalia, remains blissfully unaware of the profound and terrifying change that has taken root within the young girl. He sees only the survivor, the child he protected, completely oblivious to the fact that he has inadvertently carried Alex Wesker's consciousness off the island, allowing her twisted legacy to continue, hidden within the innocent shell of Natalia Corda. The true horror of Same Island, it seems, has only just begun. Moving forward in our timeline, we arrive at the expansive and globally impactful events of Resident Evil 6, which unfold primarily between 2012 and 2013. This period marks a devastating global outbreak of a new and terrifying pathogen, the C virus, threatening to plunge the world into unprecedented chaos. Our story begins in the war-torn Edonian Republic, a fictional Eastern European nation, where a crucial discovery is made amidst the conflict. Here, we are introduced to Jake Muller, a young mercenary with a surprising lineage. He is, in fact, the biological son of the infamous Albert Wesker, a revelation that carries profound implications for the future of bioterrorism. More importantly, Jake possesses a unique genetic gift, natural antibodies to the C virus, rendering him immune to its devastating effects. This makes him an invaluable asset in the race to develop a cure, and a mission is immediately launched to extract him from the dangerous war zone. Tasked with this critical mission is Sherry Birkin, a character we last saw as a young girl surviving the Raccoon City incident. Now, as a seasoned agent for the Division of Security Operations, or DSO, a US government agency dedicated to combating bioterrorism, Sherry is a capable and determined operative. Her personal history, marked by exposure to the G virus and subsequent enhancements, gives her a unique perspective on the dangers of biological weapons. Sherry's objective is clear: safely escort Jake Muller from the chaotic battlefields of Edonia to the United States, where his extraordinary blood can be studied for its potential to unlock a vaccine against the burgeoning C virus threat. This journey, however, proves to be anything but straightforward, as various factions, all with their own agendas, converge on Jake. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, a separate but interconnected crisis erupts in the United States. Leon S. Kennedy, a veteran Raccoon City survivor and now a special agent for the US government, finds himself at the heart of a devastating bioterrorist attack in Tall Oaks, a seemingly peaceful American university town. The attack is swift and brutal, involving a widespread C virus outbreak that transforms the town's inhabitants into aggressive, mutated creatures. In a shocking turn of events, even the President of the United States, Adam Benford, is infected and tragically succumbs to the virus, becoming one of its early victims. This act of terror plunges the nation into a state of emergency and sets Leon on a desperate quest to uncover the truth behind the attack. Accompanying Leon is Helena Harper, a Secret Service agent assigned to the President's protection detail. Overwhelmed by guilt and desperation, Helena confesses a horrifying truth to Leon. She was coerced into facilitating the Tall Oaks attack. Her younger sister, Deborah, had been abducted, and Helena was blackmailed into becoming an unwitting accomplice in the President's assassination. This revelation adds a deeply personal and tragic dimension to the unfolding disaster, as Leon and Helena must not only fight for survival, but also unravel a complex conspiracy that reaches the highest echelons of government. Simultaneously, on the other side of the world, Chris Redfield, the legendary co-founder of the Bioterrorism Security Assessment Alliance, or BSAA, leads a squad into the heart of C virus outbreaks plaguing China. However, Chris is not the resolute leader he once was. He is suffering from a profound case of amnesia and severe post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, stemming from a disastrous mission in Edonia 6 months prior. During that mission, his entire squad, save for himself, was wiped out by a C virus attack, leaving him with fragmented memories and a deep sense of loss. This psychological trauma has left him vulnerable and questioning his purpose, making him a shadow of his former self. It falls to Piers Nevins, Chris's loyal and highly capable BSAA subordinate, to anchor his commander. Piers, a skilled sniper and an unwavering advocate for Chris, dedicates himself to helping Chris regain his memory and, more importantly, his resolve. Through sheer determination and a steadfast belief in Chris's leadership, Piers slowly but surely guides Chris back from the brink, helping him to confront his past and refocus on the immediate and overwhelming threat of the Neo-Umbrella organization and its C-virus bioweapons. This bond between Chris and Piers becomes a central emotional core of their campaign. Throughout these interconnected events, the enigmatic Ada Wong plays a pivotal role, her presence felt across multiple locations and storylines. She is not merely an observer, but a key player, often appearing as both a target for various factions and a master manipulator, pulling strings from the shadows. Her actions are frequently shrouded in mystery, and her true allegiances remain ambiguous, as is her custom. However, a significant complication arises from the existence of a doppelganger. Ada is frequently impersonated by Carla Radames, a brilliant but deeply disturbed researcher. Carla's impersonations are meticulously crafted, designed to sow chaos, discredit the real Ada, and further her own sinister agenda, blurring the lines between the two women and creating immense confusion for all involved. Carla Radames, the architect of the global C-virus outbreaks, is a figure of immense tragedy and vengeful fury. She was once a brilliant geneticist working for a shadowy organization known as the Family, led by Derek C. Simmons. Simmons, obsessed with recreating Ada Wong, subjected Carla to horrific experimentation, transforming her into a clone of Ada. This traumatic experience, a violation of her very identity, fueled Carla's desire for retribution. She orchestrates the widespread C-virus attacks as a meticulously planned act of revenge against Simmons, aiming to dismantle his power and make him suffer for her forced creation. Carla's brilliance, twisted by her trauma, makes her an incredibly dangerous and unpredictable adversary, capable of unleashing devastation on a global scale. As the C virus outbreaks escalate, Jake Muller and Sherry Birkin, despite their best efforts to evade capture, are eventually apprehended by Neo Umbrella forces. They are subsequently transported to a heavily fortified underwater facility in China, a hub for Neo Umbrella's illicit research. Here, Jake becomes a living laboratory, subjected to further experimentation as Neo Umbrella seeks to fully understand and exploit his unique C virus immunity. His blood, a potential key to both a cure and a new generation of bioweapons, becomes the focus of their twisted scientific endeavors, making his rescue a paramount objective for those fighting against Neo Umbrella. Back in the United States, Leon S. Kennedy and Helena Harper relentlessly pursue the truth behind the Tall Oaks attack. Their investigation leads them to Derek C. Simmons, the National Security Advisor and a powerful figure within the U.S. government. Simmons, revealed to be the true mastermind behind the Tall Oaks atrocity and the broader C-virus conspiracy, is exposed as a member of the Family, a secret society that has been manipulating global events for centuries. Confronted by Leon and Helena, Simmons, in a desperate attempt to escape justice, injects himself with the C-virus, transforming into a grotesque and powerful bioorganic weapon, or BOW. A protracted and brutal battle ensues, culminating in Leon and Helena's eventual defeat of the mutated Simmons, bringing a temporary end to his reign of terror, though the implications of his actions resonate globally. Meanwhile, Chris Redfield, having regained his memory and his fighting spirit, and Piers Nevins lead a BSAA rescue mission to the aforementioned Neo Umbrella underwater facility in China. Their objective, to liberate Jake Muller and Sherry Birkin from their captivity and prevent Neo Umbrella from further exploiting Jake's immunity. The facility is a nightmarish labyrinth of C-virus abominations and advanced security, testing the BSAA's mettle to its limits. The rescue operation is fraught with peril, but Chris and Piers, driven by their sense of duty and justice, push through the relentless opposition. During the intense climax of their mission, as they confront the ultimate BW created by Neo Umbrella, a colossal and terrifying creature known as the Haos, Piers Nevins makes the ultimate sacrifice. Severely wounded and facing overwhelming odds, Piers injects himself with an enhanced strain of the C virus. This desperate act grants him incredible regenerative abilities and enhanced strength, allowing him to unleash a devastating attack that cripples the Haos. However, the transformation is irreversible, and Piers, knowing he cannot be saved and unwilling to become a monster, uses his remaining moments to save Chris Redfield, pushing him into an escape pod before succumbing to the virus's effects and perishing in the collapsing facility. His sacrifice, a poignant moment of heroism, ensures Chris's survival and the ultimate defeat of the Haos, but at an immense personal cost. Resident Evil 6 is unique in its narrative structure, featuring multiple interconnected campaigns that allow players to experience the global C-virus outbreak from the perspectives of different protagonists. These campaigns, each with their own distinct locations, enemies, and objectives, eventually converge, intertwining the fates of Leon, Helena, Chris, Piers, Jake, Sherry, and Ada. The overarching narrative culminates in the defeat of Carla Radames and the dismantling of the Neo Umbrella threat, effectively bringing an end to the immediate global C-virus crisis. However, the impact of the C-virus, its devastating mutations, and the lingering threat of bioterrorism continue to reverberate across the globe, leaving a lasting scar on humanity and setting the stage for future conflicts. The events of Resident Evil 6, with its epic scale and interconnected storylines, represent a monumental chapter in the ongoing struggle against bioorganic weapons. Jumping forward several years from the global bioweapon outbreaks of Resident Evil 6, we arrive in July of 2017 for what would become known as the Dulvey Incident. This period marks a significant shift in the Resident Evil saga, moving away from the more traditional viral outbreaks and into a new, terrifying form of bioorganic weapon. Our story begins with Ethan Winters, an ordinary civilian whose life is irrevocably altered when he receives a cryptic email from his wife, Mia, who had been missing for 3 years. The message, brief and unsettling, urges him to come to Dulvey, Louisiana, a remote and swampy region if he wants to find her. Driven by hope and a desperate need for answers, Ethan embarks on a journey that will plunge him into a nightmare beyond his wildest imaginings. Ethan's search leads him to a derelict, isolated plantation in the heart of the Louisiana bayou. The air is thick with a palpable sense of dread, the decaying architecture hinting at a dark history. Upon entering the guest house, a dilapidated structure on the property, Ethan's worst fears are realized and then immediately surpassed. He finds Mia, alive, but not as he remembers her. She is disoriented, erratic, and deeply disturbed, seemingly held captive. His relief at finding her is short-lived, however, as Mia's behavior quickly escalates from distressed to overtly hostile. She attacks him with a ferocity that is utterly inhuman, displaying incredible strength and resilience. It becomes horrifyingly clear that Mia is infected with something that has twisted her into a monstrous parody of her former self. This initial encounter is a brutal introduction to the new type of threat Ethan faces, a threat that defies conventional understanding of biological warfare. The infection, whatever it is, grants its victims superhuman abilities, including accelerated healing and immense physical power, making them incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to subdue through ordinary means. As Ethan grapples with the terrifying reality of Mia's transformation, he is thrust into an even deeper layer of horror. He encounters Jack Baker, the patriarch of the family residing on the plantation. Jack, a hulking figure with a menacing grin, is also infected and exhibits the same grotesque superhuman abilities as Mia, but on a far more terrifying scale. He is seemingly unkillable, shrugging off wounds that would be fatal to any normal human, including gunshots and impalement. This encounter marks the beginning of a series of relentless and horrific pursuits, as Jack becomes Ethan's primary tormentor, relentlessly hunting him through the labyrinthine confines of the Baker estate. These pursuits are not merely physical, they are psychological, designed to break Ethan's will and drive him to the brink of madness. The sheer resilience and regenerative capabilities of Jack Baker introduce the player to the concept of the mold in a visceral and unforgettable way, though its true nature remains a mystery at this early stage. As Ethan desperately tries to survive Jack's onslaught and understand what has befallen Mia, he gradually uncovers the grim truth about the Baker family. The entire family, Jack, his wife Marguerite, and their son Lucas, are all infected with a new and highly aggressive bioorganic weapon, later identified as the mold. This isn't a virus in the traditional sense. It's a parasitic organism that profoundly alters its host at a genetic and cellular level, granting them immense regenerative powers but also corrupting their minds and bodies. The Baker family, once seemingly normal, has been transformed into a twisted, homicidal unit, driven by an unseen force. Their home, once a family dwelling, has become a macabre trap, filled with unspeakable horrors and grotesque experiments. Through fragmented notes, disturbing videotapes, and unsettling environmental storytelling, Ethan begins to piece together the tragic story of the Baker family. He learns that their transformation was not voluntary. They are, in essence, victims of this new bioweapon, forced into a horrific servitude. Their minds are controlled, their actions dictated by an external will. This revelation adds a layer of pathos to the otherwise monstrous antagonists, highlighting the devastating impact of this new bioweapon not just on the body, but on the very essence of personhood. The Baker family, despite their monstrous acts, are themselves trapped in a living nightmare, their free will stripped away by the parasitic mold. The deeper Ethan delves into the secrets of the plantation, the closer he gets to understanding the origins of the mold and its profound connection to a mysterious entity, Eveline. Eveline is not a natural organism. She is a bioweapon, a genetically engineered child designed to be the ultimate bioorganic weapon. Her creation was a clandestine project, aiming to develop a bioweapon capable of controlling individuals at a biological level, creating a compliant, hive mind army. The mold is essentially a manifestation of Eveline's unique biological capabilities, a fungal-like parasitic organism that she can generate and manipulate. It acts as her primary means of infection and control, allowing her to assimilate living beings into her collective consciousness. Ethan discovers that Eveline possesses an extraordinary and terrifying ability. She can control and mutate individuals through the mold. Once infected, victims fall under her psychic influence, becoming extensions of her will. Furthermore, the mold can manifest as grotesque, humanoid creatures known as moldids. These are not infected humans, but rather constructs of the mold itself, animated masses of fungal biomass that serve as Eveline's foot soldiers. They are relentless, durable, and emerge from the very fabric of the environment, adding another layer of constant threat to Ethan's struggle for survival. The moldids represent the raw, destructive power of Eveline's bioweapon capabilities, a terrifying army born from her very being. Amidst the chaos and horror, Ethan encounters Zoe Baker, the daughter of Jack and Marguerite. Unlike the rest of her family, Zoe appears to retain a degree of her sanity, though she too is infected with the mold. Zoe becomes a crucial ally, providing Ethan with vital information and a glimmer of hope. She explains the full extent of the family's plight, revealing that they are indeed under Eveline's control, and that there might be a way to break free. Zoe reveals the existence of a potential cure, a serum that could reverse the effects of the mold, offering a chance not only for herself, but also for Mia. This revelation shifts Ethan's objective from mere survival to actively seeking a solution, a way to save his wife and potentially the remaining members of the Baker family. With Zoe's guidance, Ethan embarks on a perilous quest to gather the necessary components to synthesize this serum. These components, known as D-series components, are rare and scattered throughout the sprawling, decaying plantation, often guarded by the molded or the infected Baker family members. The D-series components are specific genetic samples derived from Eveline herself, crucial for creating an antidote that can counteract her unique biological signature. This part of Ethan's journey is a race against time, a desperate scramble to collect these vital ingredients while constantly fending off the relentless attacks of the mold-infected inhabitants. The search for these components leads Ethan through various terrifying locations within the estate, each revealing more about the horrific experiments and the tragic history of the Baker family under Eveline's influence. During his harrowing ordeal, Ethan receives intermittent, cryptic assistance from a mysterious organization. This aid comes in various forms, from drop supplies to timely interventions that subtly guide him. This organization is later revealed to be Blue Umbrella, a reformed and repurposed version of the infamous Umbrella Corporation. After the original Umbrella Corporation's collapse, a new entity emerged, adopting the Blue Umbrella moniker, dedicated to combating bioorganic threats and rectifying the mistakes of its predecessor. Their involvement signifies a broader external awareness of the Dulvey incident and the dangers posed by Eveline, indicating that the events at the Baker plantation are not isolated, but rather part of a larger global effort to contain and eradicate bioweapons. Their presence adds a layer of intrigue and foreshadowing, hinting at the continuing evolution of the Resident Evil universe's overarching narrative. Ethan's journey culminates in a final, terrifying confrontation with Eveline. Having successfully synthesized the serum, he administers it, hoping to neutralize her threat. However, the truth about Eveline is even more disturbing than anticipated. She is not the young girl she appears to be. This is merely a projection, a manifestation of her psychic abilities. In reality, Eveline is an elderly, decaying bioweapon, her body ravaged by the very mold she controls. The serum, a powerful toxin specifically designed to target her unique genetic makeup, rapidly accelerates her decomposition, revealing her true, grotesque form, a massive, monstrous creature of pure mold. This final boss battle is a desperate struggle against a being of immense power, a culmination of all the horrors Ethan has endured. With the help of the Blue Umbrella team, who provide a specialized weapon, Ethan finally manages to defeat Eveline, eradicating the source of the mold and bringing an end to the Dulvey incident. In the aftermath of the terrifying ordeal, Ethan is rescued by Chris Redfield, a familiar face from the Resident Evil universe, leading a team from Blue Umbrella. Chris's appearance signifies the direct involvement of established anti-bioweapon forces in containing the new threat. The Blue Umbrella team sweeps through the plantation, securing the area and beginning the long process of containment and cleanup. Ethan and Mia are extracted from the nightmare, finally escaping the horrors of the Baker plantation. While the immediate threat of Eveline is neutralized, the experience leaves an indelible mark on Ethan, and the broader implications of the mold and its potential for future bioweapon development remain a significant concern, setting the stage for future conflicts and expanding the scope of bioorganic threats within the Resident Evil universe. The Dulvey incident, though contained, serves as a stark reminder that the war against bioweapons is far from over, and new, insidious forms of terror continue to emerge. Following Ethan Winters' harrowing escape from Dulvey, Louisiana, and Mia's rescue, the nightmare for the Baker family was far from over. As September 2017 dawned, bringing with it the oppressive humidity of the Louisiana bayou, the immediate aftermath of the E-type bioweapon outbreak continued to unfold, leaving a trail of devastation and lingering threats. It is here, in the murky, mosquito-infested wetlands surrounding the Baker estate, that our next chapter begins, focusing on a character previously glimpsed but never fully explored, Joe Baker. Joe, Zoe Baker's estranged uncle and Jack Baker's brother, was a man of the swamps, a seasoned outdoorsman whose life revolved around hunting, fishing, and a deep, intuitive understanding of the bayou's treacherous landscape. His rugged independence and formidable physical prowess, honed by years of living off the land, would prove instrumental in the events that followed. Shortly after the chaos at the Baker residence subsided, Joe stumbled upon a horrifying sight. Zoe, his niece, not dead, as many might have assumed, but calcified. Her body, encased in a hard, crystalline shell, was a chilling testament to the mold's insidious power, a state often preceding complete petrification or a more violent, monstrous transformation. Yet, despite her petrified state, Joe's innate connection to his family, and perhaps a faint flicker of life he sensed within her, convinced him that Zoe was still alive. He refused to abandon her, clinging to the desperate hope that she could be saved, a testament to the enduring, albeit complicated bonds of family within the Baker clan. Driven by this unwavering belief, Joe embarked on a desperate quest, a race against time and the very biology of the mold. His mission was clear: find a cure for Zoe. This was no ordinary endeavor. It meant navigating a landscape still teeming with the grotesque remnants of the outbreak. The swamps and derelict structures surrounding the Baker property, once familiar hunting grounds, had become a labyrinth of horrors. Joe, armed with nothing but his bare hands, his formidable strength, and an unbreakable will, faced the terrifying reality of the molded, the grotesque, humanoid creatures born from the E-type bioweapons infection. These abominations, ranging from the slow, shambling standard molded to the more aggressive and resilient fathomers and crawlers, were a constant threat, their guttural roars echoing through the humid air. Joe, with his intimate knowledge of the bayou, used the environment to his advantage, ambushing creatures from the murky waters or utilizing the confined spaces of abandoned shacks to funnel and dispatch them with brutal efficiency. His fighting style was raw and visceral, a stark contrast to the more conventional combat approaches of characters like Ethan Winters. As Joe pressed deeper into the swamp, his efforts to locate a cure were continually hampered by a mysterious figure, a relentless adversary known only to the locals as the Swamp Man. This elusive individual seemed to possess an unnatural resilience and an almost preternatural ability to appear and disappear within the dense foliage. The Swamp Man's interference was not merely a nuisance. He actively sought to impede Joe, sabotaging his progress and even directly attacking him. The true identity of this persistent antagonist was a revelation that would send shivers down Joe's spine. The Swamp Man was none other than Jack Baker, Joe's own brother, still alive and horrifically mutated by the E-type bioweapon. Jack's regenerative capabilities, a hallmark of the mold infection, had allowed him to survive the climactic confrontation with Ethan Winters, albeit in a far more monstrous and aggressive form. His mind, completely consumed by the mold, was a twisted parody of his former self, driven by a primal urge to protect the bioweapon and eliminate any perceived threats. The emotional weight of fighting his own brother, even in such a monstrous state, added a profound layer of tragedy to Joe's already desperate mission. Joe's arsenal was as unconventional as his approach. Lacking firearms, he relied on his sheer physical power and a collection of improvised weapons. His fists, hardened by a lifetime of manual labor and bare-knuckle brawling, were his primary tools. He could deliver devastating blows, tearing through the molded's hardened flesh with surprising force. As he progressed, he scavenged and crafted more effective armaments. One particularly iconic weapon was the gauntlet, a heavy, metal-plated glove that significantly amplified his punching power, allowing him to shatter the calcified defenses of even the most resilient molded, and to deliver bone-crushing blows to the mutated Jack Baker. He also utilized spears fashioned from sharpened branches, explosive traps made from scavenged materials, and even the environment itself, collapsing unstable structures onto his enemies or luring them into quicksand. His resourcefulness was a testament to his survivalist instincts, a trait that proved invaluable in the face of such overwhelming odds. The search for a cure eventually led Joe to a startling discovery, a hidden research facility nestled deep within the treacherous swamp. This was no ordinary abandoned shack. It was a sophisticated, albeit derelict laboratory, a relic of a bygone era. The facility bore the unmistakable insignia of the Umbrella Corporation, a chilling reminder of the pharmaceutical giant's dark legacy and its pervasive influence on bioweapon development. The presence of such a facility, seemingly forgotten and swallowed by the bayou, hinted at a deeper, more insidious history behind the E-type bioweapon and its origins. It suggested that the Baker's infection was not an isolated incident, but potentially a consequence of larger clandestine experiments. Within the decaying walls of this hidden lab, Joe uncovered a trove of research notes and equipment. These documents detailed the Umbrella Corporation's involvement in the development of the E-type bioweapon, often referred to as Eveline, and more importantly, contained vital information regarding its neutralization. The notes outlined the complex biological mechanisms of the mold, its ability to assimilate and control its hosts, and the specific properties of a synthesized compound capable of counteracting its effects. This compound, later identified as the E-necrotoxin, represented Zoe's only hope. The facility also contained advanced medical equipment, including a specialized synthesizer capable of producing the antidote, provided the necessary reagents could be found. Joe, despite his lack of formal scientific training, pieced together the critical information, his determination overriding any intellectual barriers. He understood that this facility held the key to saving his niece. His progress, however, was once again interrupted by the relentless pursuit of the mutated Jack Baker. The final confrontation between the two brothers was inevitable, a brutal clash within the confines of the research facility. Jack, now a truly grotesque and powerful creature, his body a mass of pulsating mold and hardened chitin, was a formidable foe. He wielded immense strength and a terrifying regenerative capacity, making him seemingly unkillable. Joe, armed with his gauntlet and fueled by a desperate desire to protect Zoe, engaged in a savage, no-holds-barred battle. The fight was a visceral display of raw power and unyielding resolve, with Joe utilizing every ounce of his strength and cunning to overcome his monstrous brother. He landed devastating blows, exploiting weaknesses in Jack's mutated form, and ultimately, through a combination of brute force and tactical precision, managed to subdue the rampaging creature. This final act of violence against a being that was once his beloved brother was a tragic necessity, a sacrifice made for Zoe's survival. With Jack finally incapacitated, Joe wasted no time. He administered the synthesized E-necrotoxin to Zoe, carefully injecting the precious compound into her calcified form. The wait was agonizing, but slowly, miraculously, the hard crystalline shell began to crack and crumble. The mold receded, its insidious grip releasing its hold on Zoe's body. Her skin, once pale and petrified, regained its natural color, and with a gasp, she awoke, cured of the debilitating infection. The relief and joy that washed over Joe were immense, a culmination of his arduous journey and unwavering faith. Just as the emotional reunion between uncle and niece unfolded, the distinctive thumping of helicopter blades echoed through the swamp. A sleek, black helicopter bearing the familiar but now rebranded logo of Umbrella Corps descended upon the facility. This private military company, a reformed and ostensibly benevolent iteration of the original Umbrella Corporation, had been tracking the E-type bioweapon outbreak and had likely been monitoring Joe's activities. Their arrival signified the official end of the Dulvey incident, at least for the Baker family. Zoe, still recovering from her ordeal, was carefully transferred onto the helicopter for further medical evaluation and comprehensive decontamination. Joe, having faced unimaginable horrors and emerged victorious, watched as his niece was airlifted to safety, a silent hero of the bayou, his desperate mission finally complete. The events of End of Zoe provided a powerful and emotionally resonant conclusion to the Baker family's saga, showcasing the enduring power of familial love even in the face of unimaginable horror. Transitioning from the tragic conclusion of Zoe Baker's story in the swamp, we move forward to August 2017, just days after Ethan Winter's harrowing escape from the Baker estate. The immediate aftermath of the Dulvey incident is anything but quiet as a new chapter unfolds, featuring a familiar face. This is where the Not a Hero DLC picks up, chronicling the efforts of Chris Redfield, now operating under the banner of Blue Umbrella, a reformed version of the notorious pharmaceutical corporation. Redfield's mission is clear: to track down and neutralize Lucas Baker, who, unlike the rest of his infected family, managed to evade capture and escape the main incident. The urgency of Chris's deployment stems from the intelligence suggesting Lucas is not merely a rogue infected individual, but rather an active participant in a mysterious organization, and securing any remaining mold samples is paramount. Chris, with his signature tactical precision and combat prowess, arrives in the Louisiana Bayou, a landscape still reeling from the biological horror that unfolded. His primary objective is twofold: apprehend Lucas Baker and prevent the further dissemination of the mold, the highly infectious bioweapon responsible for the Baker family's grotesque transformations. Blue Umbrella, in its rebranded form, is attempting to atone for its past sins by actively combating bioweapon threats, and Lucas represents a significant immediate danger. The intelligence gathered indicates Lucas's involvement with a shadowy group, hinting at a larger conspiracy at play, far beyond the confines of the Baker plantation. Following Lucas's trail, Chris is led deep into the Baker estate's sprawling salt mines, a subterranean labyrinth that Lucas has meticulously transformed into a deadly playground. This is no mere hideout. It's a meticulously engineered death trap, a testament to Lucas's twisted genius. The mines are riddled with elaborate booby traps, explosive devices, and intricate puzzles designed to disorient and eliminate any intruders. Lucas's uninfected status, a crucial detail revealed later, allowed him to maintain his sadistic intellect, channeling it into creating this macabre gauntlet. His freedom from Eveline's direct mental control, a result of a specialized serum administered by his mysterious benefactors, made him a particularly cunning and dangerous adversary. As Chris navigates the treacherous tunnels, Lucas, with chilling composure, taunts him through a network of monitors and intercoms strategically placed throughout the mines. His voice, devoid of the guttural rage often associated with the molded, is sharp, calculating, and laced with a perverse amusement. These taunts are not just psychological warfare. They serve to highlight Lucas's detachment and his role as a willing participant in a grander scheme. He refers to Chris as a guinea pig and his new toy, revealing a disturbing fascination with human suffering and experimentation. The constant surveillance and verbal jabs underscore Lucas's confidence in his elaborate defenses and his belief that he holds all the cards. Deeper within the mines, Chris uncovers increasingly disturbing evidence of Lucas's activities. He finds makeshift laboratories and holding cells where Lucas has been conducting horrific experiments on other victims. These unfortunate souls, likely lured or abducted, were subjected to the mold and its effects, their transformations meticulously documented by Lucas. These findings are not merely the work of a deranged individual. They are organized, detailed reports, complete with scientific observations and analyses. This concrete evidence solidifies the suspicion that Lucas is not acting alone, but rather is collaborating with a larger entity. The purpose of these experiments, it becomes clear, is to refine and understand the mold's properties, likely for weaponization or further biological research. Throughout his perilous journey, Chris confronts and defeats numerous molded creatures, the grotesque bioweapons born from the mold. These are the same creatures Ethan Winters battled, but in Lucas's domain, they are often strategically deployed, emerging from hidden crevices or triggered by proximity sensors. Beyond the standard molded, Chris also encounters more specialized mutated organisms, likely products of Lucas's own twisted experiments. These creatures, often tougher and more aggressive, serve as living obstacles, designed to wear down and eventually overwhelm Chris. Each encounter is a brutal reminder of the mold's devastating power and the sheer scale of the biological threat Lucas represents. Chris's advanced training and equipment, provided by Blue Umbrella, are put to the ultimate test against these relentless foes. As Chris delves further into Lucas's lair, he stumbles upon crucial intelligence that unravels the true scope of the conspiracy. Through recovered data logs and encrypted messages, Chris learns that Lucas's mysterious organization is none other than the Connections. This revelation is a bombshell, as the Connections are identified as the very entity responsible for the creation of Eveline, the bioorganic weapon at the heart of the Dulvey incident, and, by extension, the mold itself. This discovery transforms the mission from a simple capture operation into a critical investigation into the origins of the bioweapon. It becomes clear that Lucas was not merely infected. He was an operative, a willing participant in the Connections' sinister agenda, using his family as unwitting subjects for observation and data collection. The horrifying truth is that the Baker family's suffering was not a random act of a rogue bioweapon, but a meticulously orchestrated experiment. The trail ultimately leads Chris to a final, climactic confrontation with Lucas Baker deep within the salt mines. Lucas, cornered but unyielding, reveals his true colors as a cold and calculating operative. In a desperate attempt to gain the upper hand, Lucas injects himself with a powerful, concentrated strain of the mold. This act is a testament to his unwavering loyalty to the Connections and his belief in the mold's ultimate power. The injection triggers a rapid and grotesque mutation, transforming Lucas into a monstrous, hulking abomination, far more powerful and resilient than the standard molded. His body distorts, flesh tears, and new appendages sprout, reflecting the raw, uncontrolled power of the concentrated bioweapon. The ensuing battle is a brutal display of Chris Redfield's combat expertise against a truly formidable foe. Lucas, in his mutated form, exhibits enhanced strength, speed, and a terrifying regenerative capability. Chris, utilizing his full arsenal of weapons and tactical maneuvers, is pushed to his absolute limits. The fight is a desperate struggle for survival, with the fate of the remaining mold samples and the potential for a wider bioweapon outbreak hanging in the balance. After a grueling and intense engagement, Chris finally manages to defeat the mutated Lucas Baker. The blow that delivers the killing strike causes Lucas's grotesquely distended body to violently explode into a mass of volatile mold, a chilling testament to the bioweapon's destructive potential. This explosive demise ensures Lucas can never again pose a threat, and simultaneously destroys the concentrated strain of mold within him. With Lucas neutralized and the immediate threat contained, Chris meticulously secures the remaining mold samples found throughout the mines. These samples are invaluable for Blue Umbrella's research into countermeasures and potential vaccines. He then reports his success to Blue Umbrella Command, confirming Lucas's undeniable connection to the Connections. This intelligence is crucial, as it provides Blue Umbrella with a vital lead in their ongoing efforts to dismantle the shadowy organization responsible for creating such devastating bioweapons. The Not a Hero DLC concludes with Chris, ever the dedicated operative, having fulfilled his mission, but with the chilling realization that the fight against the Connections and the horrors they unleash is far from over. The events of this DLC firmly establish the Connections as the overarching antagonists, setting the stage for future conflicts and deepening the lore surrounding the origins of the mold. 3 years after the harrowing events in Louisiana, we arrive at February 2021 and the chilling narrative of Resident Evil Village. The Winters family, Ethan, Mia, and their infant daughter Rose have attempted to build a new, ostensibly peaceful life in a remote, snow-dusted European village. The trauma of the Baker incident, while not entirely forgotten, has been carefully compartmentalized, allowing them a semblance of normalcy. Ethan, still grappling with the lingering psychological scars, dedicates himself to protecting his family, especially Rose, who, unbeknownst to him, possesses extraordinary latent abilities inherited from her unique conception within the mold. Their quiet domesticity, however, is brutally shattered one frigid night when Chris Redfield, a figure Ethan had once considered an ally, and his elite Hound Wolf squad storm their home. In a shocking and utterly disorienting turn of events, Chris executes Mia in cold blood before Ethan's horrified eyes, then abducts Rose. The entire incident is a whirlwind of violence and confusion, leaving Ethan reeling and desperate. His world, painstakingly rebuilt, collapses once more. Ethan is subsequently knocked unconscious and awakens disoriented amidst the wreckage of a crashed transport vehicle, abandoned on the outskirts of a desolate, snow-covered village. The air is thick with an unsettling quiet, broken only by the howls of unseen creatures and the biting wind. His immediate priority is clear: find Rose. He navigates the eerie, dilapidated streets, encountering the terrified, superstitious villagers who speak in hushed, fearful tones of Mother Miranda, and grotesque creatures. The villagers themselves are a fragmented, desperate community. Some driven to madness, others clinging to a fragile hope of survival against the Lycans, monstrous, wolf-like humanoids that stalk the night. Ethan's desperate search leads him deeper into the village's dark heart, where he is eventually captured by the enigmatic and sardonic Karl Heisenberg, one of the 4 lords who govern the region under Mother Miranda. Heisenberg, a master of magnetism and machinery, brings Ethan before the mysterious and seemingly ancient Mother Miranda herself, a figure revered and feared by the villagers. It is here that Ethan receives a devastating revelation. Rose, his beloved daughter, has been dismembered. Her essence, her unique mold-derived biological components, has been separated into 4 distinct flasks, each containing a fragmented part of her being, and entrusted to Miranda's 4 loyal, yet fiercely independent, lords. This act, Miranda explains with a chilling detachment, is a critical step in a grander, more sinister plan. Ethan, his mind reeling from the horror, is then subjected to a macabre game orchestrated by Heisenberg, who attempts to pit him against a horde of Lycans in a grotesque arena. Ethan, fueled by a primal fury and a father's desperate love, manages to escape Heisenberg's elaborate trap, his resolve hardened. It is at this point that Ethan encounters the Duke, a corpulent, enigmatic merchant who appears to operate outside the direct control of Miranda's hierarchy, yet possesses an uncanny knowledge of the village's secrets and its inhabitants. The Duke, in his own peculiar way, becomes Ethan's reluctant guide and supplier, offering weapons, upgrades, and crucial information. He tasks Ethan with a singular, seemingly impossible mission: retrieve the 4 flasks from the 4 lords to reassemble Rose. This quest, fraught with unimaginable danger, becomes Ethan's sole focus, propelling him deeper into the dark heart of the village and its surrounding territories. Ethan's perilous journey begins with Castle Dimitrescu, a towering Gothic fortress shrouded in mist and fear, home to the imposing and aristocratic Lady Alcina Dimitrescu. She is a woman of immense stature, a vampiric mutant with retractable claws and an insatiable thirst for blood, sustained by the mold's transformative power. Along with her 3 daughters, Bella, Cassandra, and Daniela, who are essentially swarms of insects given humanoid form by the Kadu parasite, a variant of the mold, Lady Dimitrescu presides over a domain of opulent horror. Ethan infiltrates the castle, navigating its labyrinthine corridors, evading the relentless pursuit of Lady D and her progeny. He uncovers the castle's gruesome secrets, including the blood-drenched vineyard and the macabre laboratory where Lady Dimitrescu conducts her own twisted experiments. The encounters with the daughters are tense, requiring Ethan to exploit their weakness to cold. Eventually, Ethan confronts Lady Dimitrescu in a climactic battle, forcing her into her monstrous dragon-like mutation. With immense effort and ingenuity, Ethan defeats her, her decaying form crumbling into dust, and retrieves the first flask containing a fragment of rose. Next, Ethan's path leads him to House Beneviento, a secluded, seemingly innocuous dwelling nestled deep within a fog-shrouded valley. This is the domain of Donna Beneviento, a reclusive puppet master shrouded in black, whose primary companion is a ventriloquist dummy named Angie. Donna, through her unique connection to the mold, possesses the terrifying ability to induce powerful, reality-bending psychological illusions. Upon entering her house, Ethan is stripped of his weapons and plunged into a nightmarish descent into his own subconscious fears and anxieties. The house itself becomes a living, breathing entity, manipulating his perceptions, making him question his sanity. He encounters ghostly apparitions, disturbing memories, and grotesque manifestations of his deepest fears. The challenge here is not one of direct combat, but of psychological endurance and puzzle solving. Ethan must navigate the twisted reality Donna has created, overcoming the mental torment and deciphering the clues hidden within the illusions. He eventually confronts Donna, who, in her true form, is a frail, unassuming woman, her power channeled entirely through Angie. Ethan defeats her by destroying Angie, shattering the illusions and claiming the second flask. From the psychological horrors of House Beneviento, Ethan ventures to Moreau's Reservoir, a vast, murky expanse of water and decaying structures guarded by Salvatore Moreau. Moreau is arguably the most grotesque of the four lords, a severely deformed fish-like mutant whose body is perpetually oozing and decaying, a direct consequence of his inability to properly control his Cadu parasite. He yearns for Mother Miranda's approval, constantly seeking validation despite his repulsive appearance and limited intelligence. His domain is a testament to his instability, a decaying, flooded landscape filled with dilapidated fishing boats and a monstrous, mutated fish that patrols the waters. Ethan must navigate this treacherous environment, solving environmental puzzles, raising water levels, and avoiding Moreau's grotesque attacks. The reservoir is a dangerous place, filled with mutated creatures and the constant threat of being submerged. Ethan eventually corners Moreau, who, in a desperate attempt to gain Miranda's favor, transforms into a truly colossal, amphibious monstrosity, a grotesque fusion of fish and human. Ethan engages in a desperate battle against this Leviathan, ultimately defeating Moreau and retrieving the third flask. With 3 flasks secured, Ethan's journey culminates in Karl Heisenberg's sprawling industrial factory, a stark contrast to the Gothic castle and the natural decaying environments of the other lords. Heisenberg, a brilliant but nihilistic engineer with mastery over magnetism, has transformed his domain into a nightmarish assembly line of grotesque bioweapons, a testament to his ambition and technological prowess. Ethan infiltrates the factory, navigating its perilous machinery, avoiding the various mechanical traps and mutated creatures that serve Heisenberg. Here, Ethan learns of Heisenberg's true intentions. He despises Mother Miranda and her rigid control, viewing her as an impediment to his own vision for the future. He plans to use Rose, specifically her unique mold-derived abilities, as a weapon against Miranda, believing he can harness her power to create a new, more powerful generation of bioweapons and overthrow Miranda's reign. Ethan, however, refuses to be a pawn in Heisenberg's schemes. He confronts Heisenberg in a climactic showdown, where Heisenberg unleashes his full magnetic power, transforming into a massive metallic monstrosity. Ethan, utilizing a makeshift tank provided by Chris Redfield's forces, unbeknownst to him at the time, engages in a brutal battle, ultimately defeating Heisenberg and securing the final flask. With all 4 flasks in hand, Ethan believes he is close to reassembling Rose. However, the true horror of Miranda's plan and the deeper implications of the mold are yet to be fully revealed. Ethan discovers the true nature of Mother Miranda, not just as a powerful mutant, but as the progenitor of the entire mold phenomenon, a being who has existed for centuries, manipulating events and individuals across generations. He learns of her connection to Eveline, the central bioweapon from Resident Evil 7-1, revealing that Eveline was merely a failed prototype, a flawed attempt to recreate Miranda's deceased daughter. The mold, in Miranda's hands, is not merely a bioweapon, it is a tool of resurrection, a means to transcend death. Mother Miranda reveals her ultimate, heartbreakingly twisted plan to resurrect her deceased daughter, Eva. Eva, who died of the Spanish flu over a century ago, is the driving force behind Miranda's every action. Miranda has been experimenting with the mold for centuries, seeking the perfect vessel to bring Eva back to life. She explains that Rose, due to her unique mold-derived abilities, her inherent compatibility and resilience to the mold's transformative properties, is the ideal vessel. Rose's body, untainted by the imperfections of previous experiments, is the perfect blank slate for Eva's consciousness. Miranda intends to transfer Eva's consciousness into Rose's body, effectively erasing Rose and bringing Eva back. This revelation plunges Ethan into a fresh wave of despair and rage. Fueled by a desperate love for his daughter, Ethan confronts Mother Miranda in a final cataclysmic battle. Miranda, in her true monstrous form, exhibits an array of terrifying powers, shifting her shape, manipulating the environment, and unleashing devastating attacks. Ethan, pushing his own limits, fights with everything he has, seemingly defeating Miranda. However, in a final shocking twist, Miranda, with her dying breath, rips out Ethan's heart, a wound that should be instantly fatal. Yet, Ethan doesn't die. Instead, he simply collapses, only to reawaken moments later, his body regenerating. This horrifying act reveals the truth of Ethan's own mold-based immortality, a secret he himself was unaware of. His body, having been infected and transformed by the mold during the events of Resident Evil 7A, has achieved a form of regenerative immortality, allowing him to survive wounds that would kill any normal human. He is in essence a mold-human hybrid, a fact that both explains his resilience and adds another layer of tragic irony to his existence. Just as Ethan is grappling with this earth-shattering realization, Chris Redfield and his Houndwolf squad finally arrive, providing critical support in the aftermath of the battle. It is here that Chris delivers another bombshell. Mia, the woman Ethan saw executed at the beginning of this nightmare, is alive. The Mia who was killed was, in fact, Mother Miranda in disguise, having used her shape-shifting abilities to infiltrate Ethan's family and abduct Rose. This revelation, while bringing a flicker of hope that the real Mia is safe, adds another layer of betrayal and manipulation to Ethan's already fractured reality. The full scope of Miranda's deception and the length she went to achieve her twisted goals is finally laid bare. 15 years after the terrifying events in the titular European village, our timeline brings us to 2037, where we find Rosemary Winters, or simply Rose, now a teenager. Despite her father's ultimate sacrifice to save her, Rose's life has been far from normal. She struggles profoundly with the very powers that define her existence, the mold abilities inherited from her unique biology. The Megamycete, the fungal superorganism responsible for the bioorganic horrors of the village, had imprinted itself upon her at a cellular level, granting her extraordinary, yet deeply unsettling capabilities. These powers manifest as a form of biological manipulation, allowing her to affect and control the mold itself, but also causing her immense emotional and physical distress. She views them not as a gift, but as a curse, a constant reminder of the horrific circumstances of her birth and the loss of her parents. This internal conflict drives her relentless search for a cure, a way to strip away these unwanted abilities and live a semblance of a normal life, free from the constant fear of what she might accidentally do or what she might become. Her existence is a lonely one, marked by isolation and a desperate yearning for normalcy, a yearning that often puts her at odds with the very people trying to protect her. Her quest for a cure leads her into contact with a mysterious individual known only as KK, whose true identity remains shrouded in ambiguity, approaches Rose with an unusual proposition, one that promises to fulfill her deepest desire. He claims to possess the knowledge and means to remove her mold powers, but the method is unorthodox, to say the least. K suggests that Rose must enter the consciousness of the Megamycete itself, a vast interconnected network of fungal mycelia that acts as a repository of memories and experiences, a sort of collective unconsciousness for all beings connected to it. This is a perilous undertaking, as the Megamycete is not merely a biological structure, but a sentient, albeit alien entity, capable of manifesting illusions and trapping minds within its depths. Kay insists that within this consciousness lies the key to severing her connection to the mold, a radical and unproven procedure. Rose, desperate and seeing no other viable options, agrees to Kay's dangerous proposal, driven by the hope of finally being free from her burden. She prepares herself for a journey into the unknown, a journey that will test her resolve and confront her with the deepest fears and truths of her own being. Upon entering the Megamycete's consciousness, Rose finds herself in a surreal and disorienting realm, a landscape crafted from fragmented memories and vivid illusions. This is not a physical place, but a mental construct, a manifestation of the collective experiences absorbed by the fungal superorganism. The environment shifts and warps, reflecting the volatile and unpredictable nature of the Megamycete itself. Almost immediately, she encounters a peculiar entity, a figure known only as the Faceless Doll. This doll, devoid of any discernible features, acts as an enigmatic guide within this dreamlike reality. It communicates with Rose through cryptic warnings and symbolic gestures, its presence both comforting and unsettling. The Faceless Doll immediately cautions Rose about the presence of a malevolent force within the consciousness, an entity it refers to as the Collector. This warning instills a sense of dread in Rose, reinforcing the inherent dangers of her undertaking. The doll's guidance becomes crucial as Rose navigates the treacherous mental landscape, each step fraught with the potential for illusion and deception. The Faceless Doll's unwavering presence, despite its unsettling appearance, offers Rose a fragile sense of companionship in this otherwise solitary and perilous journey. As Rose delves deeper into the Megamycete's consciousness, she is confronted by manifestations of her own past, distorted and amplified by the fungal network. These are not mere memories, but vivid, interactive illusions, designed to test her resolve and exploit her vulnerabilities. She relives traumatic moments, encounters spectral figures from her childhood, and grapples with the emotional scars left by her unique existence. These encounters serve to highlight the profound impact her mold powers have had on her life, forcing her to confront the very aspects of herself she wishes to erase. Amidst these personal confrontations, Rose also encounters a fragment of Mother Miranda, the ancient bioterrorist who had originally discovered and experimented with the megamycete. This fragment, a residual imprint of Miranda's consciousness, is a chilling reminder of the origins of the mold and the horrors it unleashed. Miranda's presence, even in this fragmented form, exudes a powerful malevolence, a testament to her enduring influence within the megamycete. Rose must navigate these psychological challenges, battling not only the external illusions but also the internal turmoil they stir within her. Each encounter brings her closer to understanding the true nature of her powers and the profound legacy she carries. The true nature of the faceless doll is eventually revealed, a revelation that profoundly impacts Rose. Through a series of subtle clues and emotional resonance, Rose realizes that the enigmatic guide is not merely an illusion, but a manifestation of her father, Ethan Winters. Ethan, whose consciousness had been absorbed by the megamycete during his heroic sacrifice in the village, had been protecting Rose from within its depths all along. This realization is a deeply emotional one for Rose, confirming that her father, though physically gone, had never truly left her. His presence, albeit in this ethereal form, offers Rose an immense sense of comfort and strength, reinforcing her belief in the enduring power of familial love. The faceless doll's warnings about the collector take on a new significance with this revelation. Ethan, understanding the true dangers within the megamycete's consciousness, had been guiding and safeguarding his daughter, even in death. His selfless act of protection, even from beyond the grave, underscores the profound bond between father and daughter and highlights the enduring impact of his sacrifice. This discovery strengthens Rose's resolve, knowing that she is not alone in this perilous journey. With Ethan's true identity revealed, the mystery of the collector also becomes clear. Rose learns that the collector is not an independent entity, but a dominant and malevolent fragment of Mother Miranda's consciousness, residing within the megamycete. Miranda, in her insatiable quest for power and control, had imprinted herself so deeply into the fungal network that even after her physical demise, a powerful remnant of her will persisted. This fragment, driven by Miranda's original ambition to absorb and control unique biological phenomena, seeks to assimilate Rose's extraordinary mold powers. Miranda, having meticulously studied the megamycete and its potential, recognizes the immense power inherent in Rose's unique genetic makeup, a perfect fusion of human and fungal biology. The collector's goal is to absorb Rose's abilities, thereby consolidating its own power and potentially resurrecting Miranda's influence in a new, even more potent form. This revelation transforms Rose's journey from a quest for a cure into a desperate battle for survival, as she realizes that she is not merely seeking to remove her powers, but to prevent them from falling into the hands of a truly malevolent force. The stakes are now higher than ever, as Rose understands that the fate of her own unique existence, and potentially the world, rests on her ability to confront and defeat this powerful fragment of Miranda. Armed with the knowledge of the collector's true identity and its malevolent intentions, Rose is forced to confront the entity head-on. The collector, a manifestation of Miranda's cunning and cruelty, unleashes a barrage of illusions and grotesque creatures, all designed to break Rose's will and force her to surrender her powers. These are not merely physical threats, but psychological assaults, crafted to exploit Rose's deepest fears and insecurities. The illusions are incredibly convincing, blurring the line between reality and deception, making it difficult for Rose to discern what is real and what is merely a construct of Miranda's will. However, throughout these harrowing encounters, Rose's own mold powers, which she had so desperately sought to remove, begin to manifest with increasing strength and control. She starts to instinctively manipulate the mold within the consciousness, bending it to her will. She uses her abilities to dispel illusions, to defend herself against the grotesque creatures, and to navigate the treacherous mental landscape. This is a pivotal turning point for Rose as she begins to understand that her powers are not merely a curse, but a potent weapon against the very forces that seek to control her. Each successful defense, each vanquished illusion, strengthens her resolve and her growing mastery over her unique abilities, transforming her from a victim seeking a cure into a powerful protagonist defending her own existence. As the battle against the collector intensifies, Ethan's manifestation, still present as the faceless doll, makes the ultimate sacrifice. Recognizing the immense power of the collector and the growing threat it poses to Rose, Ethan channels his remaining essence within the megamycete, pouring his strength and life force into his daughter. This act is not merely a symbolic gesture, but a transfer of raw power, a final, selfless gift from a loving father to his child. Ethan's sacrifice provides Rose with a surge of energy, a renewed sense of purpose, and an amplified connection to the mold within her. This surge of power is crucial, giving Rose the strength and focus she needs to overcome the collector's final, desperate onslaught. It is a moment of profound emotional weight, as Rose witnesses her father's ultimate act of love and protection, a sacrifice that echoes his earlier demise in the village. This act solidifies Rose's understanding of her powers, not as a burden, but as a legacy, a living connection to her father's enduring love. With this newfound strength, Rose is able to push back against the collector's influence, to resist its attempts to absorb her, and to finally take control of her own destiny within the megamycete's consciousness. Empowered by her father's sacrifice and her own burgeoning strength, Rose finally accepts her powers. This is a profound shift in her perspective, a complete reversal of her initial desire for a cure. She no longer views her mold abilities as a curse, but as an integral part of who she is, a unique and powerful aspect of her being. This acceptance allows her to gain complete control over them, to wield them with precision and intent. She confronts the Collector directly, not with fear, but with newfound confidence, using her fully realized mold powers to dismantle Miranda's fragment. The battle is fierce, a clash of wills and abilities within the Megamycete's consciousness, but Rose, now fully embracing her unique gifts, proves to be the stronger force. She systematically breaks down the Collector's influence, severing its connection to the fungal network and ultimately defeating this last vestige of Mother Miranda's malevolence. This victory is not just a triumph over an external foe, but a profound internal victory, a testament to Rose's journey of self-discovery and acceptance. She emerges from the Megamycete's consciousness transformed, no longer seeking to erase her powers, but to understand and master them. As Rose emerges from the Megamycete's consciousness, she is a changed individual. The journey has been arduous, but it has forged her into a stronger, more self-assured young woman. She no longer seeks a cure, having fully embraced her unique abilities. The fear and self-loathing that once plagued her have been replaced by a quiet confidence, a deep understanding of her own potential. Her powers, once a source of torment, are now a part of her identity, a connection to her past, and a tool for her future. She steps back into the physical world with a newfound purpose, ready to face whatever challenges lie ahead. Her experiences within the Megamycete have given her a unique perspective on life, a deeper understanding of the interconnectedness of all things, and a profound appreciation for the sacrifices made on her behalf. Rose Winters, no longer just a survivor, but a powerful individual in her own right, continues her life, ready to navigate the complexities of a world still reeling from bioorganic threats. Her journey is a testament to resilience, self-acceptance, and the enduring legacy of love, setting the stage for her future role in a world forever altered by the events of the Resident Evil saga. With her powers now under control, she is a force to be reckoned with, a beacon of hope in a world that often succumbs to darkness, a testament to the fact that even the most terrifying origins can lead to extraordinary strength. Jumping forward a few years from the Shadows of Rose DLC, we arrive in 2015 for the animated film, Resident Evil Death Island. This period sees a convergence of many familiar faces, all drawn into a new bioweapon crisis centered around the infamous Alcatraz Island. Our story begins with Leon S. Kennedy, who in his capacity as a federal agent is dispatched on a critical mission. His objective? To locate and rescue Dr. Antonio Taylor, a brilliant but enigmatic scientist who has been forcibly abducted by a shadowy organization. Leon's investigation takes him deep into the criminal underworld, navigating layers of deception and violence as he attempts to piece together the motive behind Taylor's disappearance. The abduction itself is shrouded in mystery, with initial leads proving to be dead ends or deliberate misdirections, highlighting the sophisticated nature of the group responsible. Leon's pursuit of Taylor is relentless, driven by the understanding that a scientist of Taylor's caliber could be instrumental in developing or combating new bioweapons, making his rescue paramount to national security. Meanwhile, on the other side of the country, Chris Redfield, still a stalwart member of the Bioterrorism Security Assessment Alliance, or BSAA, finds himself embroiled in a burgeoning zombie outbreak in the bustling city of San Francisco. The initial reports are chaotic, detailing isolated incidents that rapidly escalate into widespread panic. As Chris and his BSAA unit respond, they begin to notice a disturbing pattern among the infected. Unlike typical zombie outbreaks, where victims are often a mixed bag of ages and backgrounds, these particular zombies seem to be targeting specific individuals, and their attack methods, while brutal, exhibit an unusual degree of coordination. This suggests a more sophisticated origin than a simple, uncontrolled viral spread. Chris's investigation involves analyzing forensic evidence, interviewing survivors, and tracking the movements of the infected, all while battling the escalating horde. He observes that the victims share a common attack pattern, a brutal efficiency that points to a specific design rather than random aggression. This anomaly immediately raises red flags for Chris, signaling that this is not a conventional outbreak, but something far more sinister and orchestrated. The unique characteristics of these zombies, their almost tactical approach, suggests a new type of bioweapon, one that has been carefully engineered for a specific purpose. As these separate but interconnected events unfold, other key figures in the Resident Evil saga are also drawn into the unfolding crisis. Jill Valentine, a veteran of numerous bioweapon incidents and a former STRS operative, finds herself pursuing leads related to a new, highly virulent strain of a bioweapon. Her investigation takes her through a labyrinth of corporate espionage and clandestine operations as she uncovers whispers of a new project that could have devastating global implications. Jill's experience with the T-virus and other bioweapons makes her uniquely qualified to recognize the early warning signs of a major biohazard event. Her pursuit is driven by a personal commitment to preventing another Raccoon City. Claire Redfield, Chris's sister and a prominent activist for global biohazard awareness, is also on the trail of a new virus. Her work with TerraSave, a non-governmental organization dedicated to assisting victims of bioterrorism, has given her access to a network of informants and humanitarian contacts. These contacts begin to report unusual illnesses and disappearances, all linked to a mysterious new pathogen. Claire's investigation focuses on the human cost of these bioweapons, seeking to protect the innocent and expose those responsible. Rebecca Chambers, the brilliant former STRS medic and now a BSAA advisor and professor of immunology, becomes involved through her scientific expertise. She is called upon to analyze samples from the San Francisco outbreak, and her initial findings are alarming. Rebecca's deep understanding of virology and immunology allows her to quickly identify the new pathogen as a variant of the A virus, a highly dangerous bioweapon previously encountered. What makes this particular variant so concerning, however, is its unprecedented ability to target specific individuals, a level of precision that suggests a terrifying leap in bioweapon technology. Each of these heroes, though initially working independently, is unknowingly converging on the same central threat, their individual investigations forming pieces of a much larger, more terrifying puzzle. Rebecca's detailed analysis of the A virus variant reveals its chilling sophistication. She determines that this new strain possesses a unique genetic marker that allows it to identify and infect individuals based on specific biological criteria, effectively turning it into a guided missile of disease. This capability is a game changer in the world of bioterrorism, moving beyond indiscriminate infection to targeted elimination. The implications are profound: a bioweapon that could be deployed to eliminate specific populations, or even individuals, based on their DNA. Rebecca's expertise is crucial in understanding this new threat, as she meticulously deciphers the virus's genetic code, attempting to unravel its mechanisms of action. She discovers that the virus utilizes a complex system of protein recognition, allowing it to bypass immune defenses in targeted individuals while remaining dormant or less virulent in others. This selective targeting mechanism is what allows the perpetrators to control the spread and impact of the pathogen, making it a truly terrifying weapon. The mastermind behind these meticulously orchestrated events is revealed to be a man named DC, whose real name is Dylan Blake. DC is no ordinary terrorist. He is a former researcher who once worked for the infamous Umbrella Corporation. His motivations are deeply personal and fueled by a profound sense of injustice. DC's family was tragically killed by Umbrella's bioweapons during one of their many catastrophic outbreaks. This personal loss has twisted his brilliant mind, transforming him from a scientist into a vengeful extremist. DC believes that the world has not truly learned its lesson from Umbrella's atrocities, and that the continued existence of bioweapons and the organizations that create them necessitates a radical solution. He sees himself as an agent of retribution, aiming to cleanse the world of the very evil that destroyed his life. His meticulous planning and advanced scientific knowledge, honed during his time at Umbrella, make him an incredibly dangerous adversary. He has spent years developing his own bioweapons, not for profit or power, but for a twisted form of justice. As the heroes follow their respective leads, all roads eventually converge on a singular, ominous location: Alcatraz Island. This former maximum security prison, steeped in history and isolated from the mainland, has been transformed into DC's hidden laboratory and base of operations. Here, DC is not only developing the highly contagious A-virus variant, but also a new generation of bioorganic weapons, or BOWs, designed to unleash his apocalyptic vision upon the world. The island's remote location and formidable defenses make it an ideal stronghold for his nefarious plans. Within the repurposed prison cells and subterranean complexes, DC is conducting horrifying experiments, creating monstrous new creatures that are even more deadly than their predecessors. The atmosphere of Alcatraz, already chilling, becomes even more so under DC's control, a crucible of scientific madness and vengeful ambition. It is on Alcatraz that DC finally reveals the full scope of his horrifying plan to the assembled heroes. His intention is not merely to cause localized outbreaks, but to unleash his new virus on a global scale. However, his target is highly specific. DC explicitly states that his bioweapon is designed to target those connected to Umbrella and its bioweapon legacy, a twisted form of poetic justice. He believes that by eliminating those who either created, profited from, or were complicit in the development of bioweapons, he can prevent future catastrophes. His plan is an act of extreme vengeance, aiming to wipe out the very ecosystem that allowed Umbrella to flourish. He views himself as a necessary evil, a surgeon cutting out a cancerous growth from humanity. This revelation sends a chill down the spines of the heroes as they realize the depth of DC's hatred and the terrifying precision of his bioweapon. During the infiltration of Alcatraz, Leon S. Kennedy encounters Maria, a formidable mercenary who serves as one of DC's most loyal enforcers. Maria is not just a skilled combatant, she possesses enhanced physical abilities, including superhuman strength, speed, and resilience, all thanks to viral experimentation. These enhancements make her a truly terrifying opponent, capable of shrugging off attacks that would incapacitate a normal human. Her movements are fluid and deadly. A testament to the viral modifications she has undergone, Maria's loyalty to DC is unwavering, stemming from her own past trauma and a belief in DC's radical ideology. She views DC as a savior, offering her a new purpose and the means to exact her own form of justice. Her presence adds another layer of complexity to the hero's mission, as they must contend not only with DC's bows but also with enhanced human adversaries. Leon's encounter with Maria is a brutal test of his skills, forcing him to adapt to an enemy unlike any he has faced before, one who combines human intelligence with viral-enhanced physicality. As the heroes delve deeper into DC's fortress, Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine confront DC himself, along with his terrifying new generation of BOWs. The ensuing battle is a desperate struggle for survival against creatures designed for maximum lethality. Among DC's creations is a mutated liquor, an even more grotesque and agile version of the iconic bow with enhanced sensory perception and razor-sharp claws. This liquor is faster, stronger, and more cunning than its predecessors, posing a significant threat to the seasoned BSAA agents. But the liquor is not the only horror DC has unleashed. Chris and Jill also face a new aquatic bow, a monstrous creature adapted for combat in the submerged areas of Alcatraz. This creature, with its powerful jaws and incredible speed in water, presents a unique challenge, forcing the heroes to fight in an unfamiliar and treacherous environment. The design of this aquatic bow highlights DC's scientific prowess and his willingness to exploit any biological niche for his creations. The sheer variety and deadliness of DC's bows underscore the advanced nature of his research and the immediate danger they pose to the world. Chris and Jill's combat expertise is pushed to its limits as they navigate the treacherous corridors and flooded chambers of Alcatraz, battling these nightmarish creations. While Chris and Jill engage in direct combat, Claire Redfield and Rebecca Chambers focus on a more scientific approach. Their mission is to find a cure, or at the very least, a way to neutralize the deadly A virus variant. Rebecca's unparalleled expertise in virology becomes the cornerstone of their efforts. Working under immense pressure in DC's makeshift lab, they race against time to decipher the virus's intricate genetic structure and identify its weaknesses. Claire, with her experience in humanitarian aid and her unwavering determination, assists Rebecca in gathering samples, analyzing data, and navigating the complex scientific equipment. Rebecca's deep understanding of viral mutations and her ability to quickly analyze complex biological data are critical. She meticulously examines the virus's replication mechanisms, its protein structures, and its specific targeting sequences, searching for any vulnerability that could be exploited. Their work is a race against the clock, knowing that with every passing moment, DC's plan draws closer to fruition. They understand that a direct confrontation with the virus is as important as defeating DC himself, as a cure or neutralizer would prevent the wider catastrophe DC intends. As their investigations progress, the team uncovers an even more horrifying aspect of DC's plan, a new ultimate BOW, dubbed the Chimera. This monstrous creation is designed not for brute force, but for widespread contagion. The Chimera is engineered to spread the A virus globally through airborne transmission, an unprecedented level of biological warfare. Its design incorporates elements from various organisms, creating a creature capable of generating and dispersing a highly infectious viral aerosol. The Chimera represents the pinnacle of DC's vengeful ambition, a weapon capable of executing his global purge with terrifying efficiency. The discovery of the Chimera elevates the stakes dramatically, transforming the mission from containing a localized outbreak to preventing a worldwide pandemic. The heroes realize that simply defeating DC or destroying his existing BOWs will not be enough. They must neutralize the Chimera before it can unleash its deadly payload. With the full scope of DC's plan revealed, the heroes unite, combining their unique skills and experiences to stop a global outbreak. They face not only DC's personal vendetta, but also a relentless onslaught of mutated creatures, each designed to protect the Chimera and ensure the virus's release. The battle for Alcatraz becomes a desperate struggle for the fate of humanity. Leon's combat prowess, Chris and Jill's tactical expertise, Claire's unwavering resolve, and Rebecca's scientific genius are all brought to bear against DC's forces. They navigate treacherous environments, engage in intense firefights, and confront terrifying bows, all while racing against the clock. The confrontations are brutal and unforgiving, pushing each hero to their physical and mental limits. They must work as a cohesive unit, anticipating DC's every move and overcoming seemingly insurmountable odds. The personal stakes are incredibly high as each hero has witnessed firsthand the devastating consequences of bioweapons, and they are determined to prevent another global catastrophe. In a climactic confrontation, the heroes ultimately defeat DC, bringing an end to his reign of terror and his vengeful crusade. The battle against DC is a brutal affair, as he unleashes his full arsenal of bioweapons and enhanced mercenaries, fighting with the desperation of a man who believes he is on the verge of achieving his twisted justice. However, the combined might and unwavering determination of Leon, Chris, Jill, Claire, and Rebecca prove to be too much for him. Simultaneously, they manage to destroy the Chimera, the terrifying airborne BOW that threatened to unleash a global pandemic. The destruction of the Chimera is a critical victory, preventing the worldwide spread of the new, highly targeted A virus variant. This act of heroism averts a potential catastrophe that would have dwarfed previous bioweapon incidents. With DC defeated and the Chimera neutralized, the immediate threat is contained. The events of Resident Evil Death Island serve as a stark reminder of the enduring danger of bioweapons and the constant vigilance required to protect humanity from those who would wield them. The heroes, once again, stand as the last line of defense, preserving the fragile peace against the ever-present threat of bioterrorism. Their victory, though hard-won, ensures that the world can breathe a collective sigh of relief, for now. From the insidious origins of the Progenitor virus in the 1960s, through decades of bioorganic weapon outbreaks, corporate conspiracies, and the relentless fight for survival against the monstrous creations of Umbrella and its successors, the Resident Evil saga has woven a complex tapestry of horror and heroism. This intricate web of events, culminating in the recent confrontations on Death Island, consistently demonstrates humanity's struggle against its own hubris and the terrifying consequences of unchecked scientific ambition. And that is the complete Resident Evil timeline.